Okay, welcome back. Unclicked. We're here with DeMarcus Paul, Steve Crandall.
Thank you.
And we are in a new space. It was I made a move. So lighting, all those things are going to be a little bit different. Could have honestly, some sort of photo could fall on you at any moment because I just kind of taped them up last night.
I would expect no less.
No mechanical mounting whatsoever.
We are here to party and anything goes.
Anything goes. So Crandall, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's a privilege and an honor to be here to talk with both of you. And I'm stoked. I'm excited. Let's get into it.
First off, thank you for this.
Cool. My contribution to the Unclicked headquarters.
I appreciate that. We're gonna get that up like right here.
Awesome.
Oh yeah.
I felt good. Like I'll post a photo of the entire room, but I felt good like that we could kind of add to it and go lower and lower. Now, because the old stuff is like now it's up there. That's
for context. I painted that in the back of the van last night while I was camped out at the Fast and Loose house.
Nice.
Road trip art.
A Honda Odyssey.
A Honda Odyssey.
You got that in there?
Yep, and a couple bicycles and a cooler and some dirty laundry.
Nice.
And all the essentials for travel.
And we also have drop-in coffee, which we will talk about more, of course.
Cool.
But whoa, graceful.
Perfect.
Welcome to the podcast.
Yep. T-Rex.
Hey.
What? So we almost did this like 5 months ago or something. Time goes fast.
So last winter, I had planned to come out here, and then I just ended up stuck on the East Coast. And then
wasn't there like some crazy storm or something?
Last winter.
That was a year ago.
That was February. Jeez. We got like a crazy ice storm, and like the whole East Coast was shut down. And then I was like, oh, in the springtime I'll just fly out and hang out. And then I was like, I don't want to fly anywhere.
Yeah.
Like missed connections. Like it just looked like a hassle, and I was like, I don't want to stress it. And then the weather got nice. I was like, well, I'll just stay home.
Yeah. So and then a year later, you're here. You decided to now drive out.
Yep.
And what's your path been here?
So January 1st, I woke up without a plan, and it was raining. I had ridden New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm.
My plan was to try to ride on New Year's Day. It's like these little rituals as an aging BMX'er. Pop. And got in the van, drove to Tennessee, hung out, went to Austin for a couple days, drove across the vast expanse of Texas.
Yes.
Till I got to Silver City, New Mexico. Rode a skate park that was by myself in like 30-degree weather. It was like 6,000 feet altitude.
Was the park good?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was above my pay grade, but it was rad. But cruised over to Tucson, slept in the van, and then came over to San Diego, and I've been just loitering in Ocean Beach for a couple days, and went up to L.A. yesterday and Encinitas and hung out with some old friends. My homie Gilly and Crazy Joe, we rode bikes. It was like a flashback to the early 90s. It was badass.
Is that his bowl? I saw that photo.
Yeah, so his neighbors had a house with a bowl, and then his kids were friends with their kids, and they were moving, and he was like, and he bought the house, and it's got this really cool bowl in the backyard.
Wow.
Yeah. And then like I did a little like snooping around, and there's people that I know like have pictures on their Instagram riding there. And it's like, whoa.
Oh, that's cool.
Pretty sick.
Yeah, I think Trey wrote it recently too, right?
It's possible. I'm not sure.
So is he a skater or BMX'er?
He used to live at the Fat House with me and Tag and Gilly.
Right.
But he skates, surfs, BMXs.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, he's a California guy now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, how did we're getting into it, but how is Gilly in LA? That seems like a very and I know he made the move a long time ago.
Gilly's wife is a high-end fashion designer.
Oh wow.
And they ended up out here with that. And then he started doing a lot of woodworking and got out of the jump building business. So he does like high-end furniture making, and she's a freelance fashion designer.
Just super LA.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick.
That's cool.
Yeah.
From designing lips and landings to
and like he was showing me some of the furniture that he makes, and it was like very high dollar. He's like, don't look at the price tag. He's like, you could tell he's like almost embarrassed, but it's like, dude, it's amazing work. You should be proud of that.
Cool. That's cool.
Pretty awesome.
That's pretty sick.
Like I get such a kick out of seeing BMXers like take what they've learned, and like I feel like BMXers like specialize in like improvising and like using their resources to the best they can, and then they transfer into something beyond BMX, and then like just see that evolution. It gets me real hyped, whether it's like photographers, filmers, artists, furniture makers, like
You guys grew up together, right?
Yeah, I met him and Mike Tag when I was 12 years old in like 7th grade.
How is it? It's got to be pretty interesting too, like growing up with somebody and being around like every day to like seeing where they are today.
Yeah,
like,
it's bizarre because it's like he's got a child now, you know, and it's like I've been living in a school bus for like the last several years, and it's like but it's like it's weird because like the world's changed so much, you know, even just the last like several years. But it's like we spent all our lives, you know, up to a certain point, like every day just being kids.
Yeah.
And then we started growing up, and then we live in different areas, but our phones keep everybody so connected that it's kind of like a weird, like, it's like, oh, dude, I haven't seen you in 2 years. But it's like you don't realize it.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing everybody online, and then you're like, you know, with the pandemic, it's like part of this trip was I just needed to see my friends. You know, I was like, I always use that to like recharge my batteries, and it was like, and so yeah, like
that's pretty sick.
But yeah, to know somebody since like we're like, you know, just doing whatever we can to travel and ride bikes and just ride all day, every day, to like, damn, dude, you live in like this nice house in LA, and you've got like a, you know, a happy, healthy family, and like, this is rad.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's so cool. It's like nothing like, there's nothing quite like seeing like your people just do good. You know, it's like some people get like jealous, or some people feel like, oh, you know, like they got left behind, but like for me, like more so lately, it's just like, damn, dude, like I've got some cool ass friends.
Yeah.
You know, they're doing cool shit.
Yeah.
It's cool to see your friends do well.
And it's inspiring, and it's like, damn, like, you know, it's like, and then like looking back, it's like we did all this really great stuff with like, you know, our time in, you know, the core of BMX. It's like, no wonder we got so much cool stuff done. It's like,
Yeah.
I was around such a great community of people. So
I always find it interesting when it's like, you know, you met Tag and Gilly in high school, and Tag became an amazing rider.
Yeah.
And Gilly was also an amazing trail rider, and then almost like a pillar in the trail community, and then he's onto this, and you've had such an impactful role in BMX as well. And it's like when you have those, like, you know, could have one of you existed without the other two? You know, you ask that question, you know, like the molecules
I think
coming
that
together.
The
type
energy
thing.
and the community that we created, and like the friends, like all that energy, it's like it was just, it made us all better. Like you know, it's like when you're on the deck of, you know, at the skate park, and you're riding with somebody that's like, you know, it's like a little step above or whatever. You're like, damn, I'm going to like juice it a little bit more this time. Like, like if you're riding with people that are like at a high level, it's going to push you to ride at a higher level. Like, and I'm lucky enough that I've always had you know, been able to surround myself with people that have like pushed me to do better, and like realize my shortcomings and my faults, and like, you know, it's real easy to just kind of like sit there and be like, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, if you have good people around you, they're like, hey, dude, like that tabletop was cool, but you could drop the shoulder a little bit, clean it up, and you'd be like, all right, cool. And I use like those things as like an analogy for life. You know, it's like, wow, you can always do better. And if you have the right people around that are like, you know, I've been in different stages of my life where there's like, you know, I'm scared to jump this set of doubles, and you got a couple dudes that are like, oh yeah, you got it. Oh, he's gonna eat shit. You know? And then you got your homies, and they're like, you got it, dude. And I'm like, however you choose to like interact with those situations, like some people always want to see you come up short, because it's like they either just think it's funny, or they can just feel better about themselves. Yeah. And some people are like, they believe in you, and that creates infinite potential. Like, and it echoes, you know, within your group. You know, it's like, if my friends believe in me, or if my friends get me stoked, then I'm going to do the same for them. And like, and it's not like intentional. It's just like, if you're around good people, you're going to do good stuff.
Yeah.
And like, if you,
that's a life lesson as well, you know,
and
not
it's
necessarily like, just even with just jumping a set of doubles. But
yeah, and like I said, like I've been around BMX so long, and I've lasted to this point so far. It's like I've been lucky enough to take some of these like things I've learned as a BMXer and apply them to the rest of my life moving forward. But I'm also lucky enough to still be BMXing, so that's to me that's cool. Like that's like the trophy. I'm like, dude, I'm 1,000 years old, and I'm still like. Still at Grom at the park.
I was about to ask how old you are, and you said 1,000. So
I'm 27.
27.
Yeah,
wow.
I've turned 27 20 times so far.
Oh, great. So you've been riding 43 years.
I started riding in 1986.
Yeah. Was it racing? What did you get into?
Well, when I was real young, I just had a bike, and I would like trade baseball cards and like mow lawns and deliver papers to like get bike parts.
Well, you said 86, but I just listened to a podcast. You said you were kind of ripping around at like 4 and stuff. You didn't know what BMX was.
I didn't know what BMX was, so I started racing in '86.
Okay.
But I had been getting into BMX before that, but I didn't have any other friends that BMX, and I didn't really know like I
just this.
yeah, it was just like I was just, but it was BMX, but I didn't know that it was BMX.
Yeah.
But like I officially started like getting into like racing and stuff in '86.
Okay.
And then since then I've been, I guess, a BMX'er.
Okay.
Nice.
And I guess it was about '87, '88 was when I met Tag and Gilly.
Okay.
And that was 7th grade, I think. And there was 4 of us that BMX'd in our hometown in Ithaca, New York. And then there was a few older dudes. This dude, Mark Toast Johnson, and then Kim and Kelly Baker. They were like these like iconic, wild maniac. Still wild. Yeah. And
still iconic in my opinion.
So I was lucky to like, you know, in a small town, but like we had a small, you know, still to this day, like friends with everybody. And like, you know, we lucked out, you know, it's like back then, you know, you found something and you just, you know, it's like we were lucky we found like, you know, punk rock music, like, you know, the arts, you know, BMX, skateboarding, everything. It was like all these like subcultures were like sacred little like whatever. I don't even know what you'd call it.
Cesspools of creativity.
Yeah, it wasn't that shitty. But it was like, yeah, we all met at a pretty young age in a small town, and it was like there wasn't a lot of access points for the things that we were into. So that I think drew us like closer together as friends. And then like from then on, it was like, oh, let's do it.
Cool.
Yeah, that's pretty sick.
Kind of an off kilter question, but is there do you have a credit for kind of your personality in general, like how quick-witted you are or anything like that? Is your dad the same way? Is your mom the same way?
My dad was wild as all could be, but like chill. And my mom is like, they're both New Yorkers. They're both New York City folks. So like
strong personalities.
Yeah. Mom was like the strong voice in the house, and dad was like the gnarly dude of the house. I would say like growing up in like a New York style household, like there's a lot of banter and like family members are all just like
sharp.
Yeah. So it's like,
all right.
So I would say I would credit like my expressiveness to my mom, but like my demeanor to my dad.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. 100%.
No, that's cool.
Actually, part of this trip out here was took some of my dad's ashes to the ocean.
Oh.
He'd passed like about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
But I've been taking him to different places and dropping him off where like he was stationed in San Diego before the war in the 60s.
In Coronado?
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I took him there, and I've taken him to like other places that like are special to like my relationship with him. So like they're doing these drives, like
that's
sort
cool.
of like
homage.
Yeah, just last trip with the homie.
Paying respect.
That's
cool.
not to like get heavy, but like
no, 100%.
That was like part of this trip was like doing that, you know.
That's awesome.
That's really sick.
I guess COVID. Let's talk COVID, because I feel like that really disrupted your I got that proxy negative test from like 2 nights ago. The wife took one. Wife got negative,
I've been
so I'm good.
dancing around the entire country trying to avoid it.
Yeah. Nothing like sitting across from 2 people just
I'm like
spitting
Muhammad
in your
Ali, just out here shucking on the ropes sometimes.
Yeah. What I feel like you're one of the people. I mean, it obviously impacted a lot of people travel wise, but I mean, I feel like it fucked with your money quite a bit in it.
So, January 2020, we made the announcement that FBM was stopping as a regular business, and then I was kind of like, that was a long process of us like shitting the bed.
Yeah.
Me and
FBM
Mike,
style.
yeah, full on.
Yeah.
But me and Mike, the other owner, had been like doing what we could for years to try to keep it going, and it like eventually was just like, we can't. So January, went to Puerto Rico, did a bike ride with a buddy of mine, Chunk. We rode. This is actually a pretty funny story too.
Let's hear
it. Flew to Puerto Rico, got off the plane. We rode our bikes from San Juan to a ferry to an island called Culebra, which is like maybe a 60, 70 mile ride. I don't remember. But there was all these earthquakes that were happening.
Wild riding. Or
just in Puerto Rico in general.
Okay.
Like I guess they have a lot they have a lot of earthquakes. So we took the ferry across. It's like an hour ferry ride, and then there's like a bunch of like heavy earthquakes, and the sea is too rough for the ferries to run. So we get stuck there for like 4 nights with Russ Barone and John Superfly Scavarla. Like they met us there, and we're just camping, stuck on this island for like a few days. Like the ferry won't run. We're like, It's like couldn't have been stuck in a cooler place.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But it was like this awesome experience of like full on adventure and like decompressing from like I guess it's like the grief of like losing like the FBM part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just like a heavy, stressful period of a couple of years where I was just like, ugh, and I was like unhealthy feeling and like just fucked up. Get stuck on the island. We finally make it off. Then we fly home like a day later. It's like totally changed our whole trip. And then I get home and I'm like, all right, like I'm going to figure out my life. Like, who am I? Like, what am I doing? Like, what's next? And then like, you know, I'd already like not had much money. Like I'd always put almost all my money back into FBM.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right, cool. I've got like Swamp Fest coming up. I've got enough money to like coast until Swamp Fest. And then the Vans series will continue and I'll be like, I'll make my life work. It'll be different, but it's like still be cool.
Yeah.
And then Swamp Fest gets canceled and I'm like, fuck, all right. And then like, you know, I had been living in the bus the last few years. I was like, also part of my plan was to like try to like move back indoors and like maybe use the bus as like an art studio. And I'm like thinking about ready to sign a lease, and then like the first Vans contest gets canceled. I'm like, dude. And then, you know, dominoes fall, and then all of a sudden, like I didn't know what to make of the pandemic when it started. I was like, oh, it's like these things, you know, the news is always sensational. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
And then like people started getting sick. Everyone started like, you know, a lot of people that I know work in like the service industry. So like everyone's,
Yeah, East Coast.
yeah, like, you know, like tattoo artists, you know, people that own their own restaurants and coffee shops and all this stuff. Like everyone's just kind of scrambling. It's like all this uncertainty, and it's like creates all this heaviness in the air, and you're just like, fuck, dude, like what are we going to do? And then I just like we got that first, whatever you want to call the Donald dollars. We got that check, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that money and I was like, I'm going to just go the opposite direction I was planning. Totally renovated the bus, made it so I could live independently, cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, a friend of mine from Crust Bikes had just put a warehouse in Richmond, Virginia. He's like, you could stay over here and like don't sweat it, you know, like super generous. And
Mm-hmm.
that was that. And then from there, I was just like in the bus, just kind of like coasting, waiting it out. And I was like, see what happens.
Yeah.
But no work, like no steady work since.
Mm-hmm.
I've been like hustling, you know, doing freelance gigs and trying to hustle artwork, and you know, started a couple projects since. But
yeah, it seemed like the announcing stuff was kind of the icing, you know, like, oh, I'll be okay because I have this stuff.
it was like,
you know.
it was good money infrequently,
Mm-hmm.
but I was like, I've always been like on the, you know, the poor side of things. So I was like, I can make a dollar stretch.
You know how to manage. Yeah.
You know, it's like I never grew up like, you know, I was like working middle class, you know, like you always had to stretch a buck. You always had to make
Right.
it to payday, you know.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, figure it out. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
And I didn't have like a mortgage, and I don't have a family, so I don't have to like, I can like kind of like exist, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's still tricky, and it was like it sucked, and it sucks.
Yeah.
Because it still hasn't leveled off for me. Like I'm still just like, but I'm also like, it gives me flexibility. I can do stuff, you know.
That's good in that sense, and it was definitely a time for like pivoting in general, you know.
I mean,
but-
it was like the world kind of stopped. You know, stood still, gave me a second to like pause and figure out what I was going to do next.
Mhm.
So
What I guess at that point you had drop in and Rad Share at that point already, right?
I'd started Radshare, I think 2.5 years ago. So
Okay.
Radshare was in progress.
Okay.
Drop in started initially to like support Radshare, but it started evolving like beyond that. So they kind of go like side by side.
Mm-hmm.
And Radshare is a full-on nonprofit, and Drop In's a profit business.
Mm-hmm. And then, so I guess what was, you know, what's paying the bills in the last 2 years, because FBM's gone January 2020. You just get Radshare off the ground. Pandemic hits, so your announcing stuff goes like, what is? And I guess at that point, FBM was probably more.
I have not
negative
just to
than
like
anything.
just to give you like just to back it up a little sec, just for like context.
Yeah.
Me and Mike, the other owner of FBM, had not paid ourselves for about 8 years with FBM, so it already been existing financially without.
Yeah.
So if you
Not even like a stipend, like
I'd been
literally
working
zero?
Vans gigs and like side jobs
Yeah.
to pay for like FBM tours, or like getting people to like sponsor the trips to like get the dudes in the bus and go do stuff. So I'd been putting money back into the business rather. I was paying to do that job.
Yeah.
And like if you take like the amount of money that we would have gotten paid that we were trying to technically reinvesting back into the business, it was like a lot of money. You know, if you over that span of the year, the payroll, you know, it's like we were just doing whatever we could to keep the business going. So I'm already used to being broke. So it's like, whatever, we'll just do a different version of it. What's the difference? So to answer your question, I've just been doing like living cheap, reverse prosperity. So like if you got like $4, no, say you got $5, right? And at the end of the month you need $10, you need twice as much money, right? I've been trying to need $4. So I got $5. I've been trying to only need $4, so I got an extra $1 at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Rather than be like behind.
Yeah.
But like I said, I live in a school bus. You know,
Do you find the things that you're doing even now, like traveling and like you said, like dropping your dad off in different places, is adding more value to your existence, but also do that kind of humble you to a degree where you can put more focus on like making those critical decisions?
I think 100%. Like I have there's a distinct line for me between like finances and value. So like money comes and goes. We've all made a bunch. We've all spent a bunch. It's like whatever. It's cool to have it. You know, it's cool to have nice stuff and to be comfortable. But I don't use that as like a metric to define like what I'm going to do or how I'm going to do things. But like I've got this like amazing currency of like years on the road, so I can like show up with somebody and they're like, hey, you can crash with me. It's like, all right, didn't have to spend a bunch of money on a hotel. Like, you know, like, so like the network within BMX that I've been fortunate enough to be included in has afforded me a lot of like value that I don't have like financially.
So that's I have that on one of my questions is money versus memories.
I've made a bunch of money over the years. Like, you know, I don't want people to think I ever was a crying wolf about like FBM being like in the poorhouse, because it costs a lot of money to do that. But we also sold a lot of bikes and we made a lot of money, and that was rad. But like the people that I was lucky enough to meet and like share times with and spend time on the road with and go to events and like, you know, in some degree influence, like that's like beyond, like you can't, for me, I couldn't buy that. You know, like people have like college loans and mortgages and all this stuff that costs a ton of money. And like, I don't, you know, not to take anything away from them, but like, you know, like this past couple of years, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what do I do with my life? Like, what's next? And I'm like, damn, dude, this has been pretty cool so far. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Like, it's great to hear.
Like, I'm like, it's been challenging and stressful, and I've gone through some tough, dark like moments. But at the same time, it's like, how can you be bummed if you've spent your whole life BMXing? Like the people that you're around, like, you know, the stuff that you're exposed to, it's like, come on, man. Like everyone gets bummed, but it's like, dude, like even
to dig a little bit deeper to exactly what you're talking about. Like I had a conversation with one of my friends the other day, and it's about like the ups and downs, the highs and the lows, or like any emotion, any feeling that you're having with your own situations. Even when you're in your darkest moments, do you embrace them, or do you just like try to figure out what to do after?
I think for a long time I hid from them. Like I partied, I just avoided things, swept things under the rug, and like that doesn't work. Like you'd be like, whatever, I'll deal with this later. But like I've learned, I think, to be like, all right, like I have to get through this. I have to figure out why this is like difficult for me, and I have to embrace it, because like without like feeling the tough, challenging moments, then you don't appreciate when it's on the flip side, you know? So it's like, for me, it's like, but this has been a long evolution, you know? Like I've been the biggest screwball, knucklehead, BMX bozo. Like I'm not exempt from any of my own judgments of other people and other situations. Like I've been, and I'm outspoken and polarizing sometimes, but I feel okay with being that way, because I'm guilty of every dumb thing I've ever criticized. You know, it's like,
and you can be mad at the drunk asshole because you've been a drunk asshole.
I've been the worst. I look back at some of my behaviors and I'm like, good God, dude. Like, and like, fortunately, like, you know, I've been able to like work past some of these like things, and I'm trying to, you know, every day I try to become a little bit better of a person. And like, you can't do that without acknowledging your own faults and shortcomings. And it's like, and to your question, it's like, yeah, I have to embrace all these like difficult, tough things so that I can like, you know, when, you know, it's like, cool. Like I'm out in San Diego right now. I'm like hanging out with you guys. I got to see like all these like world class, like I went to OB Park the other day and I was like, I might as well been at
Chris Fox at OB is a fucking sight.
Unreal.
But yeah, I roll up there though. That's like, you know, Kevin Peraza's there and Ratty Matty and like Parker Heath, and I was like, it was like warm ups for the U.S. Open. I was like, well, I was gonna ride, but I'm just gonna watch you two. But it's like, when I get to these situations, like because I've been such a dipshit, and I've been able to like start making progress from that, I'm like, how could I not be stoked on this? You know, like this is awesome. Yeah. And like I haven't had an easy route to get here, but I'm thankful for it. You know, it's like it makes me who I am. You know, and it's like I haven't had a perfect life, and I've not been a perfect person by any stretch, but like I've had a good time as a lifelong BMX'er.
So let's talk about the Fire Beer Mayhem portion of FBM.
Fire Beer Mayhem.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if you know this. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I don't even the dynamics of how it actually went down. I used to have the screen name Fat Bald Men on AOL.
Weird.
And you messaged me and basically said weird, like literally, and it had to be you, and you're like, okay, I was just making sure, and I think I switched it. I think I let you have it, and I changed it to Fat Bald Me. I just took the N off, and then you got the N or something like that, which is super weird.
I don't even remember, but like
dial-up internet. Like literally,
I
in
still
high
do.
school, like
pick up the other phone and just shut off.
Yeah, like get off the fucking computer, you know, type thing. Like downloading from fucking Napster or something. I don't know.
It's pretty funny because while we were like, you know, through our peak years with FBM, like we didn't have really any like clear perspective as to like any kind of influence we had because we were just doing stuff.
Yeah.
So like to hear people that I'm friends with nowadays, or like years later, or like people, you know, I'm of the older generation, so there's a lot of people that are like, oh, we grew up watching your videos or whatever. It's like, oh, like I kind of because like. We didn't sit there and like relish in it. It was like, all right, on to the next thing. So we're always like just doing stuff and being busy, like, you know, as BMXers. So like to hear people that like we've had any kind of like impact on or influence on, or like any, even just made an impression, like it's pretty humbling and like weird.
Yeah.
Well,
you know the T-shirt story too, right? I've told you that one.
Did we send you one with a swear word on it?
I don't know. I remember
you called, I think, and I answered the phone, right?
I called because
this is before we were a bike company, right?
Yeah, way before, because literally I was like 16 or something, and so I called. There's an ad in whatever ride or something like that, a small ad or something, and I called and I was like, I want to buy T-shirts, and he's like, well, how much do you want to pay? And I'm like, literally, like, I'm just fucking nervous. Like, I don't even know if I knew it was you, but I was just nervous calling this company that I just.
It was probably like
so
it was probably in our house, you know.
Yeah,
it was like
100%. And I was like,
our home phone.
I was like, I don't know, $15, and he was like, and Crandall was like, with or without shipping, and I was like, oh. With shipping? He's like, okay, good. Like whatever. Just like let me dictate it, and it's such a funny interaction.
That's
of
amazing.
Like, you know, because you probably sold the shirt for fucking $8 to the whatever to the mail order.
I've never been the most business savvy person. So.
It was hilarious.
I've always been a hustler, but maybe not so business savvy.
Let a little kid dictate the price of everything.
I've always wanted to like share what we've been doing with everyone because I want to see everyone get excited. You know? Like,
and that McGill, and one of the shirts was the McGilla shirt, and it literally I wore it so much that it like developed little holes everywhere.
Well, you got your $15 worth.
I got my $15.
Yeah.
So FBM had such like an impact, and then going to the video stuff, like I definitely had like Albert Street when I lived at my mom saw Albert Street.
My mom saw it too.
Like the peeing on the girl with it, you know, and I remember my mom like laughed, and I was like, whoa, like what is this? Like what do you that was not a reaction that I was expecting.
Yeah, it was. Those were some wild times.
Yeah.
So like, the transition from Fat Bald Men to Fire Beer Mayhem was organic, and it was. We were young and wild, and we had video cameras, and I guess we just wanted to share what we were doing with people, and sometimes the evenings got a little rowdy. So.
Kind of going back to the three friends type thing. I'm sure having the camera present made people kind of act up a little bit more, but it was also probably it also felt very organic as well.
It was never let's do this for the camera. It was more like, oh, grab the camera, this is going down. Mm-hmm. You know, it was like, but it was always, it's just like when you're riding with your buddies and you're like, You got this.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's getting hyped up. On the East Coast, it's like you can only ride for like a portion of the year. So the rest of the year you're indoors.
Yeah.
And but you still got that same.
Tweaking.
You're just like, but you still got that same energy. You still want to get your homies hyped up and like, you know, it's the same thing. It's just not always riding. So it was like sometimes it was partying and it was like, yeah, let's tip this car over.
Yeah.
Let's light this thing on fire. Like, let's break these bottles. It's like, yeah. Just getting. It's all just about trying to get each other psyched. Like, so that was like, I would say, the common thread in all of it. It was like whether we were riding or traveling or partying, it was like just getting each other stoked. You know, it's like, and that I think that's. I mean, I'm not like a psychoanalyst of my own behaviors, but I think that was the common thread. It was just like,
I always felt like it. To me, it always felt super. Like that was the lifestyle, just as you said, that was a lifestyle. And then when it's like been replicated by other people, it feels forced, you know, like it's like a version of it.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, I can see that.
Even so, like after we kind of established this reputation as like hellraisers, like we'd go on the road and it'd be like, people would want to like party with us, but then there'd be like the one dude that wants to show off and you're like,
it's like, oh, that's not quite
dude,
it.
we didn't rehearse this. Like this, we're at Applebee's, you know.
Why'd you bring a fucking can of hairspray to Applebee's?
It's like no, it's like chill. But at the same time, we always embraced all the ridiculous behaviors.
Was there ever anything that you filmed where you were like, I cannot put this in a video?
Me and Tag had a big argument during the editing of Albert Street where we're like, there were some situations where I was like, this cannot go in. And it was like, he's like, you can't be wild and like have boundaries. You got to go all in or nothing at all. And I was like, dude, this is like not cool. We cannot do that. And I can't even like, I'm not even going to like bring it up, but it was like, but you saw like the level of like poor behavior in that video for something to be like
going back to the
out.
pee scene is like, I can't imagine what would be.
There was
not.
just to,
you know, that scene.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
right,
100%.
yeah.
So just to give you a little backstory, Tag was a cheapskate. So he started taping over the tapes, like the original DV tapes for Albert Street. And we ended up on a road trip.
That was going to be my next question. Like, where are the raw tapes?
Some of those tapes might exist, but he was just like, oh, don't lose any quality if you like tape over them. And he was like, I'm saving $30, whatever. I was like,
yeah.
At the time, it was like, all right, whatever. Yeah. You know,
we got all the good stuff. Yeah.
At no point did we think that like we were creating anything that anyone was going to care about longer than that moment. So it like didn't matter to us. But so we go on this trip. It's me, Tag, Bob Sherbo, George DeSantos, and Ralph Sinisi. And we're starting from the Northeast and we go through the South and we're going to go over to Texas. And Tag's tape, and we're riding. We're going to these spots. It's cool. And we end up on the University of Georgia, I think it is. Georgia Tech, wherever the Bulldog logo is. Athens, Georgia.
Athens, yeah. UGA.
Yeah.
You would know.
Yeah.
So we end up filming there, and the weekend previous, someone had done donuts on the football field logo. So they were all fired up. They were like, somebody came to our college and desecrated our city's pride and all this shit. I was like, we didn't know. But we're riding and doing some ledges. There's like this one rail where it's like a kink curve one, and like Tag did it I think in All Time Low maybe, but there was in a bunch of videos after that. But someone calls and complains because we're on campus and we all get arrested, and then it snowballs from there into this pretty heavy situation where Tag and Ralph gave the police fake names. Yeah. Up to that point, we just kind of like been in campuses where it's just like kind of like security guards, but these dudes were actual like a police force, so that was a problem. And then like so they were like, all right, they were freaked out and they were like, we're going to charge you with destruction of government property, which is a felony. And we're like, fuck, dude. And I'd been in some bar fights, so I got thrown in the orange jumpsuit and thrown in like county lockup with violent offenders. These dudes are all in blues, over in like the shoplifter jail.
So so you're saying when you said bar fights, you had a record. I
had a record. Okay, so I was like classified as a violent offender. Got put in with it was pretty gnarly. I mean, in my head, it was never like criminal. It was just like, oh, we're just
Yeah.
Drunken asshole.
Oh, this is illegal?
Yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't know bottles would break.
Yeah.
But so we're in jail. The cops freak out. They get a warrant for whatever, and they go through the footage on the camera, and Tag's taping over Albert Street. And some of this bad shit is on there, and they're like fucking melting down. They're like, "You cannot come here, act this way. Come from the north to the south." It was like this. The judge was
deviants.
like, they were just like, it was, and this is 1999, so things were like, it was a different time. Like, so I guess the South is still weird when, if you come from the North, they're just like, not stoked.
Yeah.
But they look at that footage, and like somehow we managed to like not get in trouble for that. We somehow explained to them that it was like not in Georgia.
It's
like,
not real pee.
these, but like these like criminal acts were not. It wasn't relevant to the situation we were in.
Yeah.
But we go up in front of the judge, and that dude's pissed at Ralph. Like looks at Tag like, fucking Bob's stoked. He's like, I had the best biscuit of my life in this jail. And I'm like, I'm all stressed out. And he's like, looks at my record, and he looks at the case, and he's like, Mr. Crandall, I'm not sure if I'll be able to set bail for you. And he throws it to the side, and like, it becomes this whole big thing. Like, we get bailed out. We've been in jail for a couple days, and then, they rifled through our van. It was like the FBM tour van at the time, but they didn't find Ralph's bag of mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like so freaked out. We didn't continue the trip. We just drove to the state line. We ended up crossing into South Carolina, and Ralph during that time eats all the mushrooms. And we just pull over to a campsite, and we were just kind of like it was a heavy moment.
Yeah. We've crossed the line. We're good.
Yeah. So we're like, all right, we're out of that state. And my lawyer's like, do not go back there. Like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you're facing serious charges. And I was like, all right, I'm out of here.
Mm-hmm.
So let me take a sip of this coffee. We get across the state line. We're good. We're like, whew. Ralph starts tripping balls. The next morning, he's like, dude, I had a moment of clarity. And like in that situation, Ralph envisions animal bikes. And so after that trip, Ralph starts Animal. And I don't know if anyone remembers, but there was, I shit you not. so like Tag being a cheapskate and taping over the Albert Street tapes in some way like helps lead to Ralph starting Animal Bikes. But if you remember, there was like a Griffin logo Animal shirt with mushrooms all over it.
Yeah.
That was homage to that night at the campground in South Carolina.
That's amazing.
Where Ralph was like, he's like had an epiphany. Like he was like, his parents were like, Ralph, you're like 2 steps. His dad, I remember his dad would be like, you're like 2 steps away from being a bum. And then Ralph starts Animal after that trip.
That's
and then
amazing.
Wow.
like another BMX legacy is spawned out of the chaos of our like weird tour van.
Wow. Is there something that happened that you didn't film, like some sort of legendary thing where like you couldn't quite get the camera in time?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. There was always somebody, because we had a couple friends, so there was like the drinkers, and then there was like Gilly hasn't drank in 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there was always someone around that was like just observing. And
Making sure nobody dies officially. Yeah.
So like we had the camera on a lot.
Okay.
So. But I'm sure there was, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Or
Maybe
maybe I
want to
just
backtrack a little bit, like since we were talking about like the stuff that happened in Georgia and all that. You talked about on like a previous interview about, and it was brief, about a guy pulling a gun on you guys at a skate park.
In Georgia?
No, this is like when you were younger. I think you guys went to.
Oh, so that's happened a few times
Oh.
on a few FBM tours, and like or just. But one of our first trips, we were at Hudson Valley Skate Park, and dude pulled a gun on us, and it was like, borrow my mom's car. Like drove like back then 3 hours is light years away,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was like a shocking moment. But there's we did a series of tours called the Gypsy Tour, where we'd invite like 5 crews, kind of travel like alongside each other, and we'd meet up, and it would be a jam wherever we met up. But we were in Connecticut one night, and we were, party style. And this dude comes up to the van, and someone else is driving because I'd been drinking that night. And he puts a gun to the door of the van. Like, so there's just the door between me and him and the gun. And he's like, you looking to get shot tonight? And I was like,
oh, what?
I was like, I'm not looking to get shot any night. And like, but I never told the dudes in the van that it happened until we got back to like where we were staying. And then like Daryl Null was with us, and I was like hammered, and I was like, Daryl, like this thing happened, and I'm kind of freaked out by it. And he was like,
So the guy just said that, and then peaced
it was
out?
like, you know, like we were like probably just being rowdy and like loading
Oh,
into the van, and it was like, you know, having words with the locals, like
yeah.
shit talking.
Well, yeah, you guys.
But like that
attracted
happened, but
attention.
like and it had diffused itself. However, I don't remember exactly how, but I remember that moment being like, fuck, dude, the last thing I want to do is get shot on tour. You know,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
it's like I don't want to get shot anytime ever. But yeah, like we'd always been dancing around some very serious situations, like on both the fun and the not so fun side of the fence.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's on. Looking back, it's almost surprising that you guys got away with as much as you.
well, it
did,
was before
you know?
smartphones, so it's like it wasn't all blasted.
Yeah.
True.
So we could kind of like narrate our own like reality, or like, you know, we're art directors, so
Yeah.
like what we put out into the world was our decision. So we there was editorial, you know, even like it's like wild and like, you know,
Was that somebody knocking on the door?
someone's beating on
Sounds
the
like
door.
it, yeah.
Yeah, let him go.
But going back to the Georgia thing, we all had to sign a piece of paper. Like we all got persona non grata for 2 years. We weren't allowed back to Athens,
Wow.
and I've never been back since. It freaked me out.
Oh,
like,
I'm sure.
Like
I'm sure.
like facing jail time for street riding is like
Oh,
a bummer.
Let me get that. Sorry.
Break. But going back to the animal thing, I don't want to give the impression that I'm in any way responsible for like this iconic like legacy with
No.
with animal. But I do want to illustrate that like so much in BMX was connected in those years that like everybody was influencing everybody else and like connected, like the community, like everyone was a part of the thing, you know. So like all these cool things happened, and like everyone was kind of like a bystander, like a spectator to their friends doing all this cool stuff. So like Ralph and those guys were going to do animal regardless of like getting arrested in Georgia, but like it makes the story that much
It
better.
does, man.
You know,
It
like,
hit real close to home for me. You know, hearing that's like, what? Like that's crazy because like I
and I'm
started
sure there's
riding
more.
really
There's
late.
more to it, I'm sure, from Ralph's side of the story. But like that's a real thing. You
Yeah,
know, like,
that's
and
amazing.
Bob was so hyped on the biscuit in jail, and like I was not hyped on my experience. Like
I thought you were talking shit, but he actually was hyped on the list.
you get Bob on this podcast someday, he'll be like, "Oh no shit, that was the best biscuit I ever had in my life."
I would love to have Bob on this fucking.
He'd probably be the last guest you would ever need, because he's like his
Oh, yeah.
storytelling and his
Yeah.
experiences are like bar none,
He
and his opinions are like just as outrageous.
his opinions are outrageous, but they're like also on point.
Yeah,
you
I mean,
know, like the perspective is.
I
Like,
don't always
whoa,
agree
I
with.
don't-
I don't always agree with Bob's point of view, but I'm like I always appreciate it.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, all right, Bob, you're fucking crazy, but hey,
Last time I talked to Bob, we were arguing about I think religion in like a fucking Denny's at 4 a.m.
of
like
course
5
you
years
were.
ago or
The
something.
only thing that surprised me that it wasn't a Waffle House.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, circling back, so Fire Beer Mayhem. I have a kind of a two-part question.
Okay.
Is, you know, where I was going with the early Fat Bald Men influence for me was that your guys' videos were impactful and influential to me from a writing perspective, and also from like a party lifestyle. You know, I tried to break a green bottle on my head one time as well, and it's like you had a lot of good influence. Has there been like backlash influence? You know, like because your drinking obviously tapered off, and I have like parallels where I'm like, you know, I bought Stevie a fucking 12-pack one time, and I'm like, oh, why'd I do that? He was like fucking 16, you know, like I shouldn't have enabled that. Like
I
that
think
type
it's
of
a
thing.
little bit of a bummer that some people took what we were doing as like, oh, partying is important, whereas I think, and like, this isn't like a developed thought, but I think the partying was just an extension of riding. We just wanted to have a good time, and we were just with our friends. So I don't think I think we were probably a little irresponsible in how we shared and portrayed like the partying.
The editorial.
Yeah. So it's like looking back, I'm like, I wish we'd have had a disclaimer that says, hey, don't drink and drive. Like, don't take pills. Like, you know, don't fuck your whole life up. Like, we were good at partying.
Yeah.
So like some of my friends weren't good at partying, and it was disappointing and sad to see things go the wrong direction for them. And I do have some regret about that. I wish that I could have like, you know, say, put a helmet on, dude. Like, you know, like, and it's so,
Like, hey, maybe don't drink 9 days in a row.
but it's
you
also
know?
like people thought that like something that was wild in Albert Street was how we lived every day. And it's like, dude, and like sometimes it ended up that way on tour. It's like every time you get to a town, that's the first time they've seen you, like the people that you're riding with, and they want to have a good time. And it's like, of course.
Yeah.
But that's the 12th day in a row that we've been celebrating the end of the day. And it's like, I'm tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like we weren't always wild. Like it was never disingenuous, but it wasn't constant.
Yeah.
There'd be times, where we just, people have jobs. We always had like everyone in our crew, like no one was a career BMX'er.
Yeah.
So it was like people work during the week, and when they get the week off, they want to let go on the weekends.
Yeah.
And we're traveling to like some jumps or a skate park or an event somewhere, and it's like, yeah, we're going to let loose, and we're excited.
Yeah.
We're excited to see everybody, and we're excited to do all this cool stuff. And
begins feeding off of one another.
all that excitement, like it's, it's like, it just turns into like, energy, and it's like, and you're just hyped, and you want to, so we would let loose. But I do wish that there was like a little bit, I can't, obviously can't go back in time, but I wish that I could have like told some of my buddies that like, kind of got swept away in it, that like, hey dude, like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Or chill.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you could always, I have a couple of examples of people where I'm like, oh, we kind of like brought them in and like inundated this party lifestyle, and then we all grew out of it, and they never did. Well, and it's like, fuck. Like I wish we didn't do that, or I wish we like kind of put that disclaimer on there.
But I think I can't control what people's perceptions are of what we do.
Of course.
And I don't feel like that's my responsibility.
You never do anything.
Exactly. But like people just assumed that we were all eating light bulbs.
Yeah.
And like to this day, people still reference Albert Street. I'm like, dude, that was over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's people that were, a big part of like what FBM is and was, that never drank or did drugs. Like John Lee, McGilla. Like John Lee's never drank or done drugs in his whole life. He's like been a instrumental part of FBM since the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Like not everybody was like covered in this blanket like idea of like, oh, they're just wild and they're like drunk rednecks or whatever. And it's like there's been like, we've always been a very inclusive group, I thought, of all different types of people, but people choose the most sensationalized like versions of FBM, and they just run with that.
Mm-hmm. What's Lou up to these days?
I don't keep in touch with him a ton, but I think he's just doing his weird Ohio, Pennsylvania border crazy person life. Yeah. He's got a child. I think he's not in jail.
Got a daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't not keep in touch with them, but I'm not like
I see him post on like BMX stuff every once in a while. I think even on Instagram and all that. And it was like I tried to tell my wife like, this is the guy, that did this, and I'm like, I was scrolling through his photos, and he definitely had like a mugshot photo, like as like a like, oh, he's in there.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he's doing good.
Yeah, it seems like he's doing all right. Yeah, actually. So, Kelly Baker.
Kelly Baker is 55 years old, I think.
He's one of my favorite people on the planet, man.
His son is going...
A ripper on motocross, right?
One of his sons is a ripper on motocross. His daughter is super cool. His wife is super cool. And he's got another son that goes to Cornell University where Kelly works.
Oh, wow.
And he's on the wrestling team, which is like very high level.
Oh, wow.
So Kelly's like somehow managed to walk this line between like absolute maniac and also like he's a good parent.
Yeah.
And he's held a job for like 20 some odd years at Cornell. And it's like, I don't think he rides a ton anymore, but he would.
He's 55.
Yeah. But he rides motocross. I remember like talking to him like a year or two ago. He's like, I broke both my legs again. And I was like,
motocross is gnarly.
I was like, what do you mean again? I did both of them.
When we worked the Transworld Motocross dudes, those guys would just like, once a year, one of them would just get fucking murked. And they're like, oh, because you're going 50 miles an hour. You may not think you're doing anything, but when you fuck up, you get fucked.
Yeah.
Kelly and his family are directly responsible for... So there's two things that influenced the FBM crew into being like, rowdy and wild.
Yeah.
There was the East Coast Destruction guys, which was one of the first videos we ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just nuts. The Bethlehem area dudes, like badass riders, and they were into all the antics. And then Kelly grew up going to motocross races with his dad and his brother. His dad's name's Wobbly Bob. Just and they'd be, all these crazy stories from the motocross track. Unadilla and Broome, Tioga were near where we lived, and they were just wild. So that influence, like I met Kelly when I was 13. Like he'd come over to my house and he'd be drinking beers already.
So he was 21 at that point.
And he's like trying to hide beers from my mom, and my mom's like, "What's he doing?"
Yeah.
Like he was spilling beer one time, trying to pretend he didn't have and my mom's like,
Just fucking admit it.
But I was like a child, you know?
Yeah.
So like, imagine like some curious wide-eyed BMXers and like that kind of influence like from the get-go. And it's like, of course things were going to get a little out of hand, you know? Like our heroes are fucking nuts.
The one time that I got to hang out with Baker was kind of like what you were talking about earlier. Like you're on a tour and you get this, end of the night thing, and this vibe was that trail jam that didn't happen.
Yeah, we got rained out. And you and Mulligan were in town.
That was a fucked up day. That was a wild
That was
day.
like a let's turn it up day because we can't ride.
And
I think we probably were showing off a little bit.
Maybe. Literally, it was like a trail jam that got rained out, and it was like pouring rain, but we just stayed in the woods and just started drinking in the middle of the day, and people were climbing up trees until they like 30 feet in the air until it like bent down and stuff, and then they're just getting fucking rowdy.
Wow.
Donuts with guns shooting in the air, which we don't even think we know who those people were.
We were with them. We went to another spot in the woods that had like a swimming hole.
Yeah.
And we went there, and some of the dudes started just doing donuts in like the parking area and just shooting a shotgun off.
And then
there was like a homemade diving board.
And the Teen Wolf.
Tito, one of the Connecticut, New England dudes, was Teen Wolfing on top of the rig, like
going fast, like on the top of the bus, going fast, like surfing it, like going fast down the dirt road.
That was a drunken mayhem weekend.
And then we went to the bar that you named the bars afterwards.
Old 76 bar.
Which I was like, it's a bar that you named bars? Like, I didn't know it was like an actual place.
That was like right down the street from the trails.
Yeah.
And the trails, Baker's Acres, that was Kelly's grandfather's like logging trail that he'd gotten passed down through the family. And the Old 76 bar was like a hunting lodge, like logger, like just redneck spot that was probably not even always an official bar.
There was like 4 of us, and we doubled the people that were in there on that night.
But it was like it was never very crowded, but it was always a dangerous spot to be in. Like you had to like mind your P's and Q's in that spot.
So, any given moment.
It ended up, if I remember correctly, that we found like a doorstop, and then propped up like a Christmas tree base on a chair, and then we're putting each shot, you'd shoot the ball and try and get it into the fucking Christmas tree base. So it was like 6 feet after the pool table.
Pool table Hot Wheels.
Yeah, and you put $1 per shot in. And I remember Baker one time put his face like right above the Christmas tree thing. I can't remember if I shot or somebody else shot.
And he let the ball hit him.
And he just stood there and smiled, and it fucking got so close to his face, and he didn't even blink. He literally was like just, and I was just so amazed.
Like without question, one of the toughest and wildest dudes I've ever.
He would 100% taken the fucking.
What just toughest dude, wildest dude. Like lucky to have like have him as a lifelong friend.
Yeah.
And also sometimes I'm like, I can't believe this guy's my friend. There was one time like. At the Christmas Classic, another weekend, I ended up in jail. But come to find out this later, we're waiting for the elevator. It was in like the Hyatt Regency in Columbus, and it was like the 90s. And Mulligan's there, like waiting to get on the elevator with me and Kelly, and we were friendly, but we weren't like tight.
Yeah.
We were aware of who each other were, and I don't remember if we were in the elevator yet, but we were about to. And Kelly's like, "Hey, bud, I got you a Christmas present." And he just decks me right in the face. And I was like, "Cool, man, I got you one too." And we just went back and forth like a handful of times. And Mulligan's just there, like backed up in the, like with his backpack on. And like years later, he's like, "Yeah, dude, I was there hanging out with you guys, and like you kept freaking me out. You guys were punching each other in the face, but like at no point were we like bummed at each other or did it get out of hand."
Yeah.
But I remember the next day, like. Gilly had gotten arrested that night by the cops.
The sober guy got arrested.
And they maced Tag, and I was hammered ass drunk. And I'm like, there's no way we can let Gilly. We got to kamikaze into jail. So I went and talked shit to a cop, and they just instantly threw me in the tank. But I remember being in jail, and I'm like...
As a plot to get McGilla out of jail.
I was like, we got to get him out. And then it turned into, I'll just go hang out with him in jail. But I remember like leaning on the thing and like, I was like, oh man, my face. And I'd forgotten that Kelly had decked me a few times. So I was like doing the like, just like, and my face was all sore. And I was like, oh, that sucked.
Wow.
Yeah,
The night that after the pool thing, you and Mulligan fought kind of in the back,
scrapped a little bit.
Yeah, in the back seat of the car, and you guys were like covered with scratches the next day.
And we were probably like
each other.
Are we mad at each other? No,
Yeah.
that's cool.
And I woke up on your kitchen floor to you putting your face in a pot full of like ice water.
Yeah, trying to like calm down like the hangover. It
Yeah.
sucked.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I remember parts of that event.
yeah, that was an eventful day that I'm glad I was definitely
That
drinking.
was 3
but-
weeks of time crammed into 24 hours.
Oh yeah, it was, and we stayed. Oh yeah, it was just it was a day that did not end, and it lived up to like all my like FBM.
Yeah.
You know, like time.
Is it real or is it a facade?
is it a facade?
I think that kind of created like even for myself, like we were talking a little earlier ago about I grew up riding trails, so if you know anything about FBM, you kind of like know that these guys let it all hang out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whenever you're like riding, you just want to let it all hang out. If you're scared, if you have a friend that's like way better at this, then it's like, what would they do?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
It was like, I remember like, specifically moments where I was like not sure of myself, and like Kelly or Tag or Gilly being like, you got it, dude. Like, let's get this. Let's make it happen. And it didn't matter if we were riding or like trying to meet some chicks or like,
Yeah.
fix your car in a parking lot of a skate park. Like, you got this, dude. Like,
Yeah.
But like, like nothing cooler. Well, there's a lot of cool stuff, but when your friends juice you up, like that is awesome. And when I see like crews nowadays where their friends are, where they're all gassing each other up, I was like, I see that. I get it. Like, that is it right there.
Yeah.
And that's like, because like literally anything's possible if you put yourself in the right circumstances and you surround yourself with the right people. Like, and I think we're like evidence of that. Like, we're like a bunch of knuckleheads from upstate New York. Anything is possible. Like,
Mm-hmm.
here I am, nearly 30 years later talking to you guys. It's like
Peaking right now.
fucking pumped. I'm stoked, and it's like, but like all these echoes of like, you got this, dude. Like from me and all my homies, and it's like, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, that's
is.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's almost similar to what Bestwick was talking about, like on the shoulders of giants, but you guys are together, like instead
yeah.
you're not on the shoulders, but you guys are like in it
and
together,
I think like,
like
because like our
lifting the thing up.
Yeah.
like
whatever
the
it is.
FBM scene was never like a big, so like Hoffman had Matt Hoffman bikes, like Moliterno at Standard, Moeller and his crew at S&M, sorry. Joe Rich and Taj doing T1, like Jimmy at Metal, like Brian at Volume. These are like celebrity pro BMXers, like individually, that are going to be successful regardless of like these ventures.
Mhm.
The FBM crew was just the crew.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like me or any one of the dudes. Like Tag went on to become like a famous, like, amazing street rider, like full pro dude.
Mhm.
But like collectively as a group, it was like a different vibe than like some sort of celebrity status, where like people didn't look up to us the same way; they looked across to us. So we were like together with
it's
everybody.
like more
That's a
relatable.
good, yeah,
Like,
that's a good way to say it.
It's like we were just regular dudes doing like pretty awesome stuff. Like not to like give myself too many kudos, but like what we did and what we continue to do, like within my community, like awesome.
Yeah.
But like what we were doing was like with everybody, not like there was never an audience in what we were doing. It was like everybody was included, and like we encouraged everyone to participate in what we were doing. It was never like, hey, check us out. It was like, hey, come on, dudes, let's do some cool stuff.
Yeah.
And like I
I
don't
feel
know,
like that's like your, when you said like don't look up to us, look across to us. Like
Yeah, it's like-
we're with it. Like I
we
like
were,
that.
we were together with everybody, like, and I think that like our like imprint in BMX during our like big years was like different than like people didn't put us on a pedestal. They were like hanging out with us.
Yeah.
And I was always pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
It's like
To give you more kudos, I feel that that energy from you. Like every time I've ever met you or been around you, it's always like you've already known me or we know each other.
The what's up, bud?
Yeah,
to like
yeah.
to somebody you don't know.
But
you
can't
know?
make it up,
yeah.
man. I can't make it up.
It's like I'm excited. Like when I go
Yeah.
to like these events and like if I'm announcing at a Vans event, like I get hyped and I'm saying ridiculous shit on the microphone and I'm like, but I'm psyched. It's not an act. Like
Yeah.
this, I'm just like psyched on BMX. Like I get hyped when people are doing cool stuff. Like, it brings me up. It elevates me, and that's why I've been such like a steadfast, like participant as a BMXer. It's like it gets me hyped.
Yeah.
And like who knows, like what I would be like or what my life would be like otherwise.
What's your advice for somebody that's that's 30 or so 25 and they're losing that hype? Is there something that you can say to, because having that energy as being a lifelong BMXer and even more so an industry person, because a lot of times industry can take that hype away.
What I've been rolling with lately is like no rules, just guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you have all these like goals and they don't kind of like, if they're not fluid, you get something done, then you're like, oh, now what?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, I don't want to like accomplish things. I'm ambitious in a way, but it's not like so goal oriented. It's process oriented. So it's like, if it doesn't matter what you've gotten done or how old you are or like your position, it's just like getting stoked. Like that's it. Like you can get stoked and be like a mediocre rider and make a great life for yourself that's happy and fun without major accomplishments. And if you can frame your own narrative that way, then you're like doing it. Like you don't have to be successful financially or like the most athletic and like, revered professional. Like BMX is just riding and like the trips and the friends and like all the cool stuff that you're doing. It's not like it's not the medals.
I think I definitely don't want it to sound like a dig in any sense, but it's like, I think why you were, besides being charismatic and funny and things of that nature in road fulls and stuff like that, but the fact that you were present and you weren't a very good rider.
I was a very good looking rider.
Very good looking at riding. I think even just from my perspective, because I was aware I was not going to be a professional rider. Well, pretty early on when I grew up with Gary. Gary was really fucking good. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not as good as him. And I could tell that I wasn't going to ever be that good.
Well, I think early on I realized, like I'd gotten hurt a few times where I'd watched Gilly and Tag like progress beyond where I was. Like we were like close in the younger years, but they were always a little bit better. But then I got like a couple major injuries where I was like, all right, I'm clearly like in the back of the pack, so to speak. But then it was like this shift. It was like, like there's like Matt Hoffman and Evel Knievel and like these like, hugely influential, icons. And not everybody's going to be like that, but everyone can have fun riding. And I think I kind of like, without realizing it, I was like, I just like riding bikes. Yeah. And like, I want to do everything I can to be part of this whole thing, whether it's putting on an event, like I'm not going to be a sponsored pro. I'll make my own team.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, that wasn't the intent, but like I got to be part of a BMX team by creating one. And then it's like I created one because I was a part of BMX.
Created more avenues. Like,
and it's like, so like I didn't look at things through the lens of like, the typical hierarchy of like pro, sponsor, this, that, or whatever. It was like, I just want to do cool stuff and I want to hang out with cool people and I'm excited about this and no rules, just guidelines. It's like, it's like, all right, it doesn't have to be like the raddest thing in the world, but it's still fun. Like you can't tell me that the best riders in the world have more fun than like the most Grom riders or like, it might be vice versa, like,
that's,
and like, in a lot of
expectations and, those type of things.
In a lot of ways, I've maintained like this Grom outlook where I'm just still so psyched on things, and like, there's been times where I've kind of been like jaded and like overconfident and, arrogant. And I'm like, I look back on those moments, I'm like, God, you were a dick. It's like, but like when I'm just like, oh, that's awesome. And like, that enthusiasm's still there, but sometimes it gets clouded by like my day-to-day realities or like, getting caught up in like the, the wrong attitude on things. But like anyone can do BMX.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a skate park. You don't have to have a mountain bike park, or you could go like, that's why street riding is such a big thing. It's like everyone can just go out and make their own reality. You don't have to have a ton of money. You don't have to be of means. You can just like rip it up. You can make your own life the way you want. Yeah. Like brick and board. It's like, it's all there.
Yeah.
It's all there for the taking. And, if you need recognition or financial reward or all this stuff to like feel good about it, then you're already a step behind. But if if that happens, rad. But if you're just like, this is awesome. I rolled my ankle. Cool. It's like, whatever. Oh, I got a flat tire. Oh, well, we had fun. It's like,
I think you were a beacon for of that idea without, maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but from the outside perspective, seeing you on that trip, cracking jokes, like specifically referring to road fulls, but like cracking jokes and, and doing some feeble grinds and doing what, you were capable of doing, and still being in that mix of those super pros meant a lot to people.
I think that said a lot that people weren't hearing otherwise, was that it doesn't matter. Like, I was riding with like the world's best riders, and I wasn't the best rider, and it wasn't an issue.
Exactly.
It was like, we're just riding.
Yeah.
And like the different like fragments of riding, or how things are like, categorized, that's like by everyone else. People are just riding. They don't care about that stuff. And like, I was lucky to be part of like a time in BMX where like I was included alongside the best without being, a phenomenal bike rider.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I was a part of what was going on, and it was regardless of my skill level. Like, my dedication to BMX, I guess, spoke just as loudly as like how good Joe Rich was, or Rooftop, or any of these riders.
Was there ever a point where you were like self-conscious that you didn't belong?
Always. Yeah. My whole life I've been like imposter syndrome. Like I'm not good enough. I'm not cool enough. Like, I think everyone has that. Everyone's insecure. Definitely. Everyone's uptight. Everyone's like super self-conscious and like embarrassed. And, at some point you just have to embrace it and be like, I am fucking weird.
Yeah.
Run with it. Yeah. Run what you brung.
Yeah.
It's hard to not be hard on yourself. It's hard to not like feel not good enough. It's like real easy to like get discouraged, but it's like going back to, if you have the right people around you, it's like, all right, dude, like, it doesn't matter if it's not a perfect, air on the ramp, or like, it's like, oh, it's a little sloppy grind or whatever. It's like, you tried it, like sometimes, like trying is more important than succeeding.
Yeah. Just showing up is,
being present and participating is my takeaway.
Yeah.
Like, everyone can participate in BMX. So you don't have to be the prettiest, the most important, whatever, but like, you can't take that away from somebody, like how much they enjoy riding.
Yeah.
That's like the individual like prize for each person.
Cool.
Wow.
I think you've done that and told that to so many people over the years.
I think one of my like proud, I don't know what you call
contribution.
One of my proud contributions to BMX is like, I've literally met tens of thousands of riders in the 20 some odd years of touring, face-to-face interactions where they were able to see like with me and my group of friends and what we were doing, that like anyone could participate, anything is possible, and like the world is yours. You can do whatever you want, and like
you can build a fucking loop out of power.
You could do whatever you want, and like you see like some of these influences that we've like made over the years with like Trey and Swamp Fest.
Yeah, there would be no Swamp Fest without Ghetto Jams.
And like I said, I'm not taking credit for anything that all these amazing people are doing, but there's definitely been an influence.
I'll give you credit for that. There would be no. If you love Swamp Fest, it would have not. Swamp Fest would not exist without Ghetto Jam.
But to my point, it's like I was able to, with what me and my friends created, like put a positive influence and impact out there where like, we might not have made videos that had the most views or had the most Instagram followers.
What's a view?
Exactly. But we showed up in a black school bus and we met people in real life and we hung out with them and we like encouraged them to like do, throw jams and like make their scenes better. And like what we did in person created ripple effects of like the DIY aspects of BMX that I think is like, it might be understated like in like social media, but like people remember when the school bus showed up and like the Ginch Bros and Kenny Horton and Latine and the Leaper Bros got out and they were like,
who's this fucking ragtag group?
Call the cops. Eric Holiday shows up and it's like, and they're all ripping riders, but like some of the young riders don't know who any of them are.
Yeah.
But they're cool as shit, and they're like, it kind of like takes away a lot of the expectations and the barriers, and like it opens up some people's eyes to like there's more opportunities than just being famous or just being like popular.
Yeah.
And like I think that's I think I'm lucky to have had that opportunity to like say, hey dudes, like you don't have to do it. You can do whatever you want. This is what we're doing. Check it out. But hey, like throw a jam, get your homies involved, like do all the cool stuff, travel as far as you can, like rip it up. And like I think that's an important part of like creating like some depth in the BMX scene.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if you're not doing that if you haven't been doing that once the pandemic ends and all the shit gets a little bit back to normal, you should make that a guideline.
I mean,
but
yeah.
you should make that a guideline to go out and experience
it's
weird
like
stuff.
it's what gets me excited. It's why I've been able to stay excited for so long. It's like you see all this new stuff, like nothing's new except for when you experience it. But like you're never gonna see something new if you stay in the same routine all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So like you get to see all this cool stuff out there. It's like, dude, that's fucking awesome. I'm like 47 years old. And I'm like, that is cool.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. No, that's cool. When did the beer start become a problem for FBM?
So me, Tag, and Gilly started FBM as like a group. I was like the one that put it all in motion, but like collectively, like it was us together.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mike Erb got involved, and like it turned into like this thing, and it's like, it's
That's like counting. That's like number 5.
I party.
Smacking
I'm here
that
to
thing.
party.
Beat
So,
the
like,
mic.
so Tag was a huge part of my life in FBM. I've known him since we were 12. He got cancer when we were 37 and passed away.
That's so fucking insane.
And that was like a very heavy experience for me to go through.
Yeah.
Around that same time was like when we'd kind of crested over our like one of our peaks with FBM, where like we were really popular, really cool, really successful. Like we'd done a lot with like, doing events, touring, and like starting our own machine shop. And like we had a lot going on. Tag gets sick, passes away. Like we become a little less popular. Like BMX changes. Like start having business struggles. My best friend is gone. I'm kind of like aging BMX'er. I'm trying to figure out who I am, and I'm just like, to what you talked about earlier, like facing some of these like difficult moments, I'll just be like, drink it away.
Yeah.
Just worry about this tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I was helping Tag's mom clean up some of his stuff, like literally like a milk crate full of like BMX racing trophies from like the late 80s or early 90s. And I just reeked of booze and hangover, and she just kind of gave me a look. And I was like, still friends with her, like to this day, like my whole life, friends with her. And she's like, didn't even say anything. She just kind of gave me a look like, I know this is tough, but you got to take better care of yourself.
Yeah.
Like she didn't say it, but I knew it, and I just never had to drink again.
Oh, wow.
And then,
Wow.
I mean, it's been a fucking challenge, you
Yeah.
know, like I relied heavily on like, masking
Coping.
my own insecurities and like dealing with my own bullshit by just being like, I'll just have some beers and everything's cool. We're partying.
Yeah.
Didn't work anymore. I was physically unhealthy. I was mentally fucking deranged. I was a fucking shithead. I was like depressed. I'd gotten depressed a few times over the years. That was like, I didn't realize it at the time because I'd always been a hype man. But I was like, oh, I was bummed out. Like FBM was changing in ways that wasn't like the same progress we were used to. Like, it was in my late 30s. Like, life's not the same as when you're just a teenager, like
Yeah.
we were teenagers as long as we could be.
Do you feel that with the personality that you are, and talking about specifically this moment and where it was a tough time for you, and do you feel that a lot of like stress from all your friends and everybody, not just like been specifically put onto you, but because that you were always probably like more upbeat, more outspoken, that you can take on a lot of different things, that you had to put a lot of your own personal things on hold just because of your personality?
Absolutely. Like there was a lot of situations where I was like, I'm tour dad, I'm like team manager, I'm like, the founder of FBM. So when something tough happens in our community, people would rely on me to be like, oh dude, how do I deal with this? Or like, what do we do? What happened? What's going on? And like, exactly. Like I would be like, I'll deal with my own emotions and grief and bereavement later. I'll be here for the dudes now, and I'll drink, and then like eventually you're like, there's something looming back here, and it's like not real positive, and it's a bummer, but you're just gonna pretend everything's cool.
Yeah.
And like, and I think that those things compounded in a way that was like pretty heavy for me personally, like internally, but I didn't realize it because I'm always the dude trying to get everyone psyched. Mm-hmm. Like whether it's on the road or like filming or shooting a photo or like, art directing FBM, I was like, let's just get everyone hyped. But like really there's like heavy issues that are like looming that I didn't have the wherewithal to deal with. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't a handbook to be like, here's how you do your own BMX company. Here's how you become an aging BMX'er. Mm-hmm. Here's how you handle substance abuse. It's like,
forced to figure it out as you go.
Yeah, and like, dudes don't want to talk about their own bullshit. They're like,
and the loss of your best friend.
Yeah, and it's like everyone's always like, oh no, we're good, we got this, you know, hey, you doing okay? Yeah, it's all good, dude. Like everyone's like, it's all good, and it's like sometimes it's not, and that's when you see your friends struggling, and it's like, there was never really like a support network for dealing with shit. Everyone's just like, oh, it's good, until the bottom falls out, you know, like, and people just keep going with it. You know, some people like don't stop drinking till there's like a, you know, some tragic incident, like whatever in their lives. And I was like, I was lucky that I knew that I was not taking care of myself, and I wasn't proud of it, but I didn't know
coping.
Any better.
You're trying to manage. Yeah.
But then once I stopped, I was like, oh, okay. I started understanding like some of the shit that I was going through in my own bullshit behaviors. And I was like, okay. But then that helped me like understand some of my friends with their struggles, because it was like so much of what we do and like how we like navigate through these situations says so much more about ourselves than the situation or the people that we're like, you know, amidst. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, you know, looking back at some of the things in my life that I'm not as proud of, it's like, man, that said a lot more about me than like, you know, who I was making fun of or how I was acting or like what I was like kind of like, you know, trying to, you know,
portray.
Yeah, just like, it's like, oh, dude, like, and it's hard to like come to terms with your own ego, even without being like, you know, a pro BMX'er, or like, you know, we all still have like all this baggage of like, oh, you know, I'm pretty important. I did this. I was on Road Fools 8. Like, I watched Behringer puke out of a horse mask. It's like, but like nobody's got any more value than anybody else. But we all end up with like, whether we realize it or not, with our ego and our baggage, and then like life happens, and you're like, fuck, what do we do now? And I'm like, so I don't know if that answers any questions.
Oh, it answers a lot, man. It's I think people hearing those things, it, you know, put a lot of things to perspective, you know, and it contributes even more to like your whole as a BMX'er, and what you contribute to BMX in general is showing that like on the backside of things, you're still normal, you still deal with things, and with aging and with going through those different things, you learn.
And I'm lucky enough to have gotten through some of these tough moments with the support of my community and like the people in my world, and be on the backside of these things without feeling too sorry for myself, because it's like FBM changing was like that was my whole life. That was like 28 years of my life, and it's like I still got something to offer. Let's see. You know, I still enjoy all this. Let's see what's next. But having people in my corner that are like, let's do some cool stuff. Like, you got this. Yeah. And it's like you got to put yourself around people like that. You know.
And that's you know, I feel for people that don't have that support group.
But it's like
because you are such a dynamic person that you bring in people and you support them, and then they support you back, and it's like you have that circle.
Well, I've always said that like with the FBM crew, it's like we didn't like go and like source a team. You know, it wasn't like here's tryouts, here's an application, like sign up for FBM. It was like we all just kind of found each other, and it was because of like, you know, what we were into, and we were all excited. Yeah. So like, there's an old saying like you're the sum of like the 5 people you spend the most time with. And there's been times where I spent
6.
there's been points in my life where I spent a lot of time with some knuckleheads, and I look back and I was like, I was a knucklehead, and I'm still a knucklehead.
If you, I mean, I'm definitely not like a big like self-help type thing, but a person or heard any of that stuff. But I've always heard that like if you want to be more successful, or you want to be happier, or you want to be whatever, surround yourself with people that are that, you know. So if you want to drink, surround yourself with people that drink. It'll make it a lot easier for you. If you don't want to drink, surround yourself with people that don't drink, and surround yourself with people, you know.
So like that you can all control. Like you can't control the world, but you can control like what kind of music you're listening to, what kind of food you're eating, how good the coffee is, and like the people that you surround yourself with. Yeah, you know, it's like. And like you can, like if it's raining or the world's falling apart, or like you don't like the news cycle, that's that. But you could be like, hey man, I'm going to listen to some good music. I'm going to eat some good food. I'm going to hang out with some good people. And that part of my day will be awesome, and I can control that. Yeah. And like that's something that I kind of like figured out a little bit along the way. And it's like, it's made a big difference for me. And it's like, that's crucial, you know. And it's like I noticed that, like, okay, if I hang out with this dude or this person that's like, they've got their merits, but they're also like a little negative or whatever. It's like, okay, like that affects me, and I need to like shift. It's like everybody, not everybody's meant to be like best friends. It's like, and everybody's got like something that they bring to the table. But if you're the smartest dude in the room, you need to go find another room so you can like,
wow,
and like,
Valid.
so I can't be around people that are just doing stuff that I did in 1998.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to like, I did that, and it's like, I'm not taking nothing away from that, but it's like, I don't want to be a broken record. We didn't put out Albert Street 5 times, like we didn't do, people like bring back Ghetto Comp, and it's like, yeah, that's cool, but like we did it already. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I can't do the same thing over and over again. I want to try to like find new challenges and like get through those and like learn and develop like within those situations and like
grow, evolve.
Yeah, I mean, it's you got to keep moving. Like, you can't just keep. Who wants to like just ride a Peloton all day? It's like that's cool. It's good exercise, but it's like I want to get out and like be in motion.
Yeah, no, but it's got the screen with the road, right?
I mean, that's
you could
rad.
actually like go down the sidewalk or something.
You got to keep moving. I like that.
But I mean, like for real, like that's where like the inspiration comes from, and like the influences like don't come from sitting still and being around the same energy.
So 2-part question: you cold turkey quit drinking.
Yep.
How hard was it, and what changes did you notice?
It was super hard because it was all I was used to. It was really lonely.
How I guess because you said lonely, so you
so
stopped associating.
A bunch of my friends were like, "Well, we're not going to go over to Crandall's tonight." My house was like the zone. Mm-hmm. Like it was like we're not going to Crandall's because we feel weird drinking around them. Mm-hmm. And it's like, dude, I don't care if you guys drink. It's like I'm not judging them, or I don't mean to judge them for the way they're behaving. Mm-hmm. So it got real lonely. A lot of self-doubt, like how do I navigate in these social circumstances where I'd be like, hey, what's up, guys? It's like, so I had to like learn how to socialize. I had to learn how to like, but there was a lot of positive things as well as like difficult situations. Like all of a sudden I had 2 hours in the morning where I wasn't hungover and like a few hours in the evening where I wasn't partying. So I started doing art more and I started riding in the mornings. And I remember in this period, I've brought this up before, like I was trying to figure out I was like, am I just doing this because this is what I do? Or it's like I was just questioning everything. And I was riding one morning at like 7 a.m. by myself at the jumps. And I was like, I just started laughing. I was like, I can't believe I'm out here this early riding. I was like, do I even like BMX anymore? Like I didn't know. Cause it was like, I was like not feeling great, like mentally or physically. And then I was like, dude, I'm a fucking BMX'er. I'm out here by myself getting it. Like no one's watching. Like there's no like I'm not putting it on social media. Like not filming for a video or shooting a photo. Like I'm just there. Granted it was riding at 7 a.m. because it was going to be 100 degrees that day. Yeah. But it was like, dude, like I was so proud of myself for being like, not just sleeping in that day.
And and it's an afterthought. You didn't think about it while you were doing it.
No, I was like, this is fucking funny, dude. I was like, it answered my questions. I was like, yeah, dude, you love BMX. This is what you do. And I embraced that. Yeah. That was another thing for me to like run with and be like, fucking cool.
What about, did you lose any friends? Like, was there, I mean, like, did your,
I think there's different versions of friendships that you have where like some friendships are deep connections that you're there thick or thin, like anything goes and you can always, years could be going by and you'd be like right back at it. And there's friendships that are based loosely on just hanging out and bullshitting. Mm-hmm. And some of those became like more distant and that's fine. Like I didn't lose friends, but I think friendships changed. But I think I became a better friend to the people that I was good friends with. Wow. But also like, because I was such... Seven. I was people like just looked at me like this party guy for so long that when I said, hey, I'm done drinking, like a bunch of people reached out and were like, hey dude, like I've been wanting to do this, or people like, hey, I've been doing this, good job. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like became a part of another community where like people would support each other in like making better choices for themselves. And I was able to like be there for some people that had like looked up to me on some level and be like, hey dude, like I can't tell you what to do, but this is how I've been, trying to like figure things out for myself. And that's been pretty rad.
That's cool.
Like, and that's kind of like a little bit of penance for like my behaviors before that, where I'd like inadvertently been a bad influence. It was like, hey, like now I can, And that sort of led me to like this like next chapter of my life where I'm trying to like share more and help people more and like do more to like uplift.
Yeah. And that was 8 years.
Almost 8 years
Almost
ago.
years.
I think
Congrats.
so.
Yeah, congrats.
Come June, it'll be 8 years.
Okay. And rip Tag, obviously, rest in peace.
I mean, and that's the thing. Like, you know, with Tag passing away, it was like a lot of feeling sorry for myself. But it was like, dude, I've got to like honor the memory of my best friend by doing better.
Yeah.
And like, and I've had a lot of friends over the years, you know, come to pass, and it's like sad and it's tragic, but it's like, it's hard to not just feel grief and sadness and get bummed and depressed, but it's like to honor your friends and their legacy and the time that you spent together, like says so much more than just feeling sad and getting hammered and like, you know, self-pity. Yep. So that's kind of like, and that's a hard choice to make. Like I have to choose to do that. Like it's real easy to just be like, fuck. But it's like, you know, like if I'm bummed out and I go like ride to the top of a hill and I bomb it, when I get to the bottom of that hill, there's no way I could be just as bummed as when I was at the top of it, because it was like that was fun. Wow. You know, like, you know, so it's like sometimes you have to just get out, and that's like where the have fun.
It's like the have you ever seen a sad person on a jet ski?
No,
yeah.
but that's kind of where the have fun every day thing came from. It was like, and without realizing it, I'd been like struggling with like different difficult feelings. But if I at least had fun every day and did something that I was like proud of or stoked on, then like I couldn't get too bummed. There was like at least a sliver of like happiness and stoke in that day that would help me get past the tougher moments.
It's cool that I, you know, as I said, you guys and FBM and those videos are such like beacons for like Fire Beer Mayhem and stuff like that, and see you parlay that into, you know, being wise enough and strong enough to just quit and get to a better spot with it.
And like cool. I said, I was lucky to have like, you know, people in my corner, whether they were drinking or not. They're like, you know, I got to thank all my friends for like being like sticking with me through all my bullshit moments as a drinker.
Yeah.
And then
I've experienced a couple.
And then sticking with me and encouraging me to do better. Like,
yeah.
You know, I'm proud and happy that I have friends that like, you know, look out for me and like.
Let's talk about FBM as a business.
Okay.
So I feel like via the documentary, like I Love My Bicycle and stuff like that, most people should know the beginnings of FBM and all that stuff.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen that.
That story's been told plenty, so.
Yeah. So let's talk about like peak FBM. Like, you know, there was a time period where you were running ads and Ride, and you guys were fucking you getting cease and desist from Disney's and shit like that, yeah. Where you guys were really doing it.
So we had gone from a couple dudes slinging T-shirts for gas money into like a bigger group of friends with more opportunities. Mm-hmm. And we decided at one point, like we're like, oh, let's get a bike made. Let's make a bike. And I remember me and Tag trying to figure out a name for another bike company. We were going to start it, and we're like, oh, MBF instead of FBM. And I was like, then finally one day he's like, let's just do FBM Bike Company. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And like, so we like started figuring out ways to get sprockets made, and like the Tag specifically sourced out getting sprockets and stems made with this dude.
I never knew Tag had such a role in that.
I mean, Tag, like everybody was always part of the thing. Yeah. Like I was the founder, me and Mike Herb were the owners, but everyone was a part of it. And I think that whole like everyone being a participant thing was like integrated into our program. You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Sorry. I just yeah, I'm good.
I'm just fucking. No, so like,
and by the way, 8.
Oh yeah.
So we started like, it was like everything we did opened up a new door for another opportunity. Like whether it was a trip or an event or, you know, a video that we'd done that was like, well, if we did that, like what else could we do? Which led us to starting a bike company, which led us to starting our own machine shop, which leads us to your question.
That was from you got me when you said you good, and then I like.
So
I was trying to hold off as long as I could.
So that's like, long story short, like all these cool opportunities led us to like us having the ability, the opportunity, and the confidence to start our own machine shop the bike company. So from a few dudes, just making stickers and raising hell at events to like, I would say in our peak, maybe we had like maybe 10 employees, cranking out like hundreds of bikes at a time, like full product line, big team, warehouse, like it was cool. It was like the dream came true. I was like, holy fuck. Wow. But it was like not without its own hurdles, and like it was a very heavy learning curve for all of us. We had no idea what we were doing, but because collectively we each had our strengths together, it was the sum of it was more than each of us individually, and we were able to accomplish a lot of stuff. And it was an important time in BMX that like there was a window for us to be able to do that, so like BMX was ready for us to do what we did, and it worked for a long time,
What you had, was there like a moment or a decision that kind of like set the things in motion for it to end, or is it kind of just,
it was kind of like
was it complete? Like I always think of the fire, but that was like
the fire,
the spark actually.
Yeah, the fire was like the phoenix, like that was like the catalyst. So we weren't making bikes, then we had the fire, and that was like, well, what do we do now? It's like, well, fuck it, let's just go for it, all in.
Did you lose, like, did you have insurance? Or
we had
anything?
insurance, but like the company had grown a lot from when we got the insurance policy to when we had the fire. Sorry.
Very good.
So it wasn't like the coverage from the insurance gave us the means to start a machine shop. It was more like, well, we can't stop now. What are we going to do? So everyone just hustled.
My favorite phrase is too dumb to quit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too dumb to realize that it was a crazy idea. So yeah, like everyone was, and like each dude that was involved, it was like, oh, like, Dave was like, oh, well, I kind of was like, hey, Dave, like, do you want to like head up this project? Or it's like, oh, this is an opportunity for him. Like, I thought he would like had more experience than he actually did, and he probably thought that I had my shit together more than I did. Like,
you're talking about Spooky, right?
Yeah, Big Dave, and so it's like an opportunity for him to create like his own spot for himself within FBM. So it was like everybody kind of had this like, all right, let's go, we're all in, let's do this. So we're like together, we were able to do something. And that's been like the another one of the common threads throughout the narrative of FBM is like together there's so much more that we can accomplish than if it was like just one person individually trying to like
the we
it's full on.
So I remember FBM, like when you guys did completes, I don't want to say you guys were, there was this time period in BMX where it was like all these component brands and frame brands are like this is the next big thing, we need to do complete bikes, like the full line. How difficult was that, and like what sort of impact did that have on the business?
So the first year we did it, so we did completes for 3 years. I think we did like 6,000 or 1,000 completes total, all in all over 3 years. The idea was we would subsidize the machine shop with complete sales, and we'd get entry-level bikes and create customers of people that would be lifelong FBM fans to buy our aftermarket stuff out of the machine shop, and then use also that money to make the machine shop better and like have better resources. Kind of the opposite happened. Like the completes took up all of our resource, and then, like the machine shop kind of like we just had fewer resources, and most of the people doing completes had parent companies or lines of credit where they had more leeway. Each year that we did the completes, it got more and more difficult. To eventually we were like, hey, let's just do what we're good at, which is like what people think of with FBM. But all that happened like while like our position in BMX was changing, like, and then in 2008 or 2009 the economy tanked, and then we stopped doing completes. And it was an active decision. We're like, hey, we're going to scale back FBM a little bit so that it's more like manageable. But then it was like a perfect storm of like backwards, and perfect bummer. Like, so we had some like employee
shitstorm.
Yeah, it sucked. So like we stopped doing completes. We had some employee turnover, and then like around that same time too, like I think our warehouse situation, like the building was becoming condemned. So like all this tough stuff was happening all at once, where like any one of them, if you had a parent company, you could have like navigated smoothly. But all of that 8,
9,
10, all those things combined, and being an independent brand, like that was the beginning of the descent of FBM, like out of our peak in like the mid 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like this afterwards, but it was like, that's when it became more and more difficult financially to like maintain forward progress.
Yeah. And if this doesn't make it to the final cut, that's fine. But there was a time period where I felt like you were resentful towards me as a person who worked at the magazine.
I don't think I meant to do that, and if I did, I apologize. I always had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, being like the underdog company, where like eventually I started to embrace it. But I felt like, if we didn't have enough money to advertise all the time, then like it felt like the magazine would give a little bit more coverage to the brands that were consistent advertisers. And I always felt like we worked really hard to like
do cool shit,
go out and meet the riders or do events. Like we did trade shows, we did contests, we did tours. And I felt like we were so committed to like BMX as a whole that people didn't realize that we were not just trying to make FBM better. It was like our theory was like, in rising tides, like all the ships in the harbor come up. So that's what we were always trying to do. We're just trying to make BMX like uplifted as a whole. Yeah. So I think sometimes I would get a little jaded and have a chip on my shoulder because it's like, fuck, dude, like.
Well, you would like that's understandable too, because like you're looking at, it's hard not to involve emotions and feelings and all that stuff and things you love, right?
Yeah.
But also you're out there, you're doing the work, you know what you're doing, and you're putting an amazing amount, you're spending all your money, crazy amount of effort to just say, oh, just get out there, but also not just saying it, but you're actually out there doing this stuff and being around the people.
It gets exhausting, and there'd been times where I wasn't at my best, and I'd be like, say something snarky or like, be coming off like a bad road trip or like we'd be on tour and I'd be dealing with like financial stuff that we didn't advertise. Yeah. And I'd be like bent out of shape or like leave for tour and have an argument with my girlfriend right before I left and just kind of just be in a bad mood. It's like, and then like something would happen and I would say or do something that wasn't a true reflection of like how I felt or who I was. Yeah. But that was the impression I made. Yeah. And like, that's regrettable, but it's like, that's part of just being a human, I guess. Yeah. And it's like, and it sucks because I'm sure, I've always had like some hard opinions about different aspects of BMX where I wish that like it was more favorable to what we were doing, but like we weren't the most popular. We weren't doing, we always kind of went against the grain, and I should always reminded myself that like, it's never going to be smooth if you always choose the hard way. Yeah. And like, that was our thing. It was like, duh. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And it's what you're talking about. Obviously at that point, like I remember being pretty bummed because, as I said, like my fucking AOL instant name was fucking Fat Bald Man. Like I literally loved FBM and I loved Crandall, so it was like, oh, here's this guy and he's mad at me, and it was like a drunk night or whatever.
But that was, but like going back to what I was talking about earlier,
and it was kind of big picture shit. But we were drinking, so I don't remember specifics, but I just remember being like fucking bummed because at that point I didn't have any fucking say. I wasn't the boss,
So that kind of thing. Going back to like being negative and being a bummer, that was more of a reflection of myself putting it on you, which says more about me being like in a bad place in that moment rather than like what you took from it, which was I was just being an asshole.
No. I didn't think you were necessarily being an asshole. It was like I said, resentful towards like the magazine but it came out as towards me, so I took it personally. But there's also the idea that we can all do better, and there's this fucking, and we deal with it all the time. Like when Trey got on Hinkins' podcast and he was like called us out for a bunch of stuff. It's like there's an inherent negative part of this job where we can't give coverage to people that don't pay the bills because they don't fucking pay the bills, and I don't have endless amount of energy.
And that's totally,
and it sucks.
And then that's the reality of it. Yeah. But the fact that you took it personal to me says that you care about something so much that it mattered that way. And that's kind of just how I always felt. Like it's hard for me not to get upset or bummed or like sometimes be polarizing or weird because I care so much about BMX. It's been the most constant, most positive, most important thing for so many years of my life that like if I'm disappointed or feel slighted or whatever, I'm going to express it. And I'm glad you took it personal because it means that what we were talking about was important to you.
Yeah, of course.
I'm bummed that I made you unstoked, but hey, we're here now. So
yeah, and that's it. And
you know, like I there was at that point, like that was part of me, like probably being in my more arrogant times where I thought I knew it all. I thought I had it all figured out. And it's like, and like Joe Rich said, once you think you have it all figured out, it's like the furthest you are from like understanding anything.
Yeah.
So
but you spoke about it like right before we started, how you want to be more mindful of what you say and what you do. And do you feel like the past, obviously, the things you've been through personally and the friendships or business friendships, do you think that contribute to like your decision making now when it comes to how you handle day-to-day conversations?
had I not evolved from those points in time, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys now because everyone would think I was a shithead. They'd be like, fuck this guy. And there's plenty of those dudes out there where people just don't want anything to do with them. So like to take these situations and to be able to learn from and evolve, like it's the same as like being when you're riding and you like, it's not working. You have to figure out how to make it work.
yeah.
And like, I'm lucky enough, like keep going back to like my community. Like people will avoid you if you're a bummer, but they'll encourage you to do better if they believe in you.
Yeah. No. That's and I took those, like I said, a drunken conversation 12 years ago at this point, but I took it. I took the words heavy, and there's aspects of this job that are not endearing and they're not fun and they don't make me likable, and I get that, but for the same reason that you said is that BMX is literally all encompassing. When Ride went away, I was like, oh fuck, what do I fucking do?
I know, but you picked up the pieces and you made it work, and like you wouldn't have done that if it wasn't important to you, and you wouldn't have gotten bummed on what I said to you if it wasn't important to you.
Yeah.
And maybe amidst some hurt feelings, you also found a little fuel, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure.
Or at least, if nothing else, consider a different perspective.
Competition and being checked and things of that nature is
crucial.
It either crushes you or motivates you.
I will say, like since I've been around you and like watching some of the stuff, and even like here in this situation, I watch how you take on like different things that people will say. Like you'll take it, and even if it may bum you out, you'll think about it as like, okay, so what can I do differently?
Yeah.
And even to myself, like I try to be in these situations, I listen to you talk about a lot of stuff to like take it in, like literally take it in, because there's certain things that I may personally have and I may personally do that I don't pay attention to, but like listening,
it's hard to pay attention to all
that. Yeah, it is.
It's like, and like, there's been moments to like the interaction that we had where like, looking back, like I had interactions like that where I was a kid and people like my heroes, I'd met some of my heroes and I was just like devastated.
Yeah.
And I took notes, and there was times where like I went over the line and I wasn't cool, but I tried to be like, if I'm ever in a position where like I'm going to bum somebody out that like looked up to FBM or me or any of my friends, like even if I'm not in a good mood, I try to put that away nowadays and be like encouraging, positive, and nothing's perfect and none of us are perfect, and like you can't make every situation, right on, but like I'm trying to do better, and like
all work in progress, like just as you said, if everybody has room to grow and everybody has bad days and everybody gets in their own fucking head about something.
But going back to the handbook thing, like there was no handbook for like you guys, there was no handbook for us, like
the furnace kicked on and that was like
but like none of us knew, like, and none of us, we were all our own bosses.
Yeah.
So like who the fuck's gonna put us in check?
Yeah.
We had to put ourselves in check. We had to hold ourselves accountable. And sometimes I had to learn the hard way that I was being a cocksucker.
If there's something you can add, string of advice that you can give to anybody that may listen to this, if they had an idea, wanted to start a company, whether it's like frame stuff, clothing, anything that they want to start, do you have any advice or any encouraging words?
Well, a few things. One, anything is possible, but you got to work for it. And there's more payment in the process than there is in the result. So if you're enjoying it, then like you could do anything. It's like you've already made it. But you got to be realistic. It's like you like I could have never done all the things that I've been a part of in BMX without being a part of a solid network and a support group of people that helped me do better. Like but you got to be willing to like sacrifice whatever makes you comfortable to accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Payment in the process. I like that term.
Yeah.
And I'm back. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Let's circle back to FBM.
Okay.
So you said 5 years of not taking a check.
I think 8 years.
8 years. Wow.
Give or take.
Yeah. Well, one other thing was I felt like FBM. You had Aaron Ross, you had Hamlin, you had a group of established pro riders, and then FBM kind of went the more like grassroots thing. We're like, hey, we're not doing the we sponsor a pro guy to run.
I think
some
we
stickers.
found ourselves getting swept up in like how other companies do things,
Mm-hmm.
and then we've done that a few times where it was like, what works for other companies doesn't work for FBM, and we would have to kind of like scale back or kind of hit the reset button. And like we did a lot of cool stuff with like our famous era team. We sold a ton of bikes with Aaron Ross, like, and we didn't try to make Aaron Ross become an FBM person by like the public's perspective. We just let Aaron do whatever he wanted to do, and I was like pretty like resistant to a lot of his ideas. I was like, that is ridiculous. like but we sold
But
it.
looking back, you're like, fuck, we would have made a bunch of money out of that.
We probably some of the best selling bikes we did with Aaron Ross.
Yeah.
Like I think our best selling bikes overall were like
Stairmaster?
Stairmaster, and then like that era was like the PW Moto and the Capone were kind of like brother sister bikes, and we sold a lot of those. Is the dog want to get that way?
No, he's fine.
But that was like, it wasn't, how do I say it? It wasn't sustainable for us to move and try to keep moving forward in a traditional BMX fashion. Like we just didn't make enough money selling frames that we made in house to keep that kind of forward progress like a traditional BMX company had been doing.
And that makes sense now looking back. To me at the time, I was like, whoa, that's a pretty weird move that they're just like foregoing the formula people are supposed to do. But then at the same time, you were doing these events, and you're doing a lot of stuff that other brands do not do.
The events and the touring and all the face-to-face interactions were like, that was our strong suit with FBM. Like so-and-so pro rider could put out the best video you've ever seen, and it, unfortunately it'll get lost in the shuffle. It becomes some white noise. People still remember the Ghetto Comp. They still remember, certain FBM tours or Brawling at the Belmar or whatever it is. Like for us, that was how we made our biggest impact was people, getting people stoked in real life. Like a lot of other companies, relied on just their team and their promotions. Yeah. And they, that works for them. It wasn't working for us. Yeah. Sometimes it would work, but
you have like United, where it's like they are a full-length video company, and Kink are the same type of thing. And you get Colt, where they put out these 15-minute banger videos online, and everybody brands kind of have their shtick, and some do it all, kind of mix it up.
And we were always just trying to do the best we could with what we had, and like we didn't have the same resources or the same budgets to like hire a filmer or pay celebrity riders the same way, or like do a lot of things. But like what we could do is dismantle the abandoned building next to us and turn it into a street course, or we could, put it, an alternator on the van, like in a parking lot in Wyoming. Like, it's like what we could do wasn't part of the formula, but it was part of the charm. It's like, it was anything, do whatever we can by any means possible, but enjoy the ride, and it was like, there was a lot of turbulence, but I think that gave a lot. I think that was a lot of the appeal, because people were like, they're just regular dudes. Like, we're down to support these guys, and like, we're relatable. We were cool to a lot of people, and like, and people were invested in FBM as participants, not as spectators.
Yeah. What was the last like viable part of FBM? Like, where was it the custom frame stuff, or what was like still going that was keeping it chugging along, or just your blind? It
was. I mean, it's hard to say. It had gone up and down, like in pretty big peaks and valleys the last few years. Like I remember we'd borrowed a bunch of money in 2017 to stay in business, and we had some friends. like we'd come together with like a 25-year anniversary graphic with our friend Jesse J, and we had a good lineup of bikes and soft goods and everything. You good?
Yeah, I it just takes it blinks, so I have to give it a long pause.
So we borrowed a bunch of money in 2017 when we'd had a really bad year, and me and Mike were co-signed on these loans. It wasn't just like FBM, the corporation, borrowing money.
Mm-hmm.
So we're foregoing our own payroll for ourselves, borrowing money. 2017 we were having like almost out of business year. 2018, best year we ever had in 10 years. And it's like, fucking cool. We got it. We could do it. We can still do it. The next year, 2019, leading into 220, terrible year. Just bad sales. Like,
why?
A 1,000 reasons, like it's hard. We couldn't keep everything in inventory like a normal bike company would. So we would have frames one month, hoodies and pedals the next month, forks the month after that. If we'd have had all of our line all the time and available, I think it could have been differently.
Yeah.
But 1,000 things. We were like, American made bikes were like not as in style as when we started.
Yeah.
It was difficult for us to maintain the cost of production. It fluctuated so much. It was our own fault and our own doing, like that things had ceased to exist in that capacity. But we didn't have an easy route either,
Yeah. It's just crazy if you have a great year and then a shit year,
But it's like so much relies on everything firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
For how we were doing things, that when one thing falls off or there's like, we get behind in another situation, it's like Jenga, like you pull one piece out and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it stays up and you just stack it back up to the top and you keep going. But like it was a very tricky juggling scenario for a lot of years. And the last term of that loan, me and Mike were like, if we're firing on all cylinders when the term of this loan is up, we'll regroup and figure out what's next.
Yeah.
But it was like falling apart, and like the morale within the company had gotten low. Like I'd gotten burned out. Like we'd all just gotten burned out.
Yeah.
Like we'd given all we had to try to keep it going.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like we kind of like met the end of the road.
Yeah.
But I was like, it's fine now. It's like, it's not a sad story because everything we did, we accomplished everything we'd set out to do. Like,
and probably more.
Like, and it, for the last couple of years, it was just trying to sell enough stuff to pay the bills to like keep afloat.
Yeah.
And there's a different dynamic and like energy to being like big dreams and like, community effort to accomplish all this great stuff, to being like, I hope we got enough money to pay the bills this month. It's like the motivation to keep doing stuff changed from like passion and dreaming to like operating expense.
Yeah, especially when there's you got this guy in the warehouse that needs this money because he has a family.
Yeah,
and
it's like,
that's the real pressure.
And like that's tough,
Yeah.
It's like, and it wasn't always perfect. There was moments where like payroll would be late, and like the painter would be like, we'd owe the paint shop money or the screen printer money, and it's like, you're not doing that stuff to be a dick. It's just there's just no money there. Like you just have to try to prioritize it in a way where you think you see a path forward, but sometimes it's just not there.
And that shit weighs on you.
It's
owing people money and seeing that phone call come in and you don't have it is a stressful thing.
And so much of what we did was relying on like our community. And when you come up short within the community, it's a bummer, dude. You're like, fuck, dude, like disappointed in myself. Like, where did I go wrong? Like all this shit. And it's like, and like when money's involved, like, feelings get hurt.
Yeah.
Or, you choose one side of an understanding that like makes sense to you. And then, like
ruins relationships as well.
It does. It's a bummer. There's been like several like situations where I wish I could have gotten through it differently.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck, man. Like, but it was like, some people might look at like what happened with FBM and be like, oh, Crandall's on a yacht somewhere, drinking champagne. And it's like, motherfucker, I'm living in a school bus.
I'm on a yacht, but I'm sober.
It's a dirt yacht. It's a dirt yacht. It's a black school bus
yacht,
that I turned into a tiny home. But it's like, I hate the idea that some people thought that me and Mike, the other owner, had like
cashed out or something.
Yeah, we had done, we made this decision and like, oh well, I'll see you, off to the sunset in our Cadillac Escalades. It's like, we made every sacrifice we could that we understood how to like try to keep it going, and it didn't work. And like people thought that because we were a long-standing company that we had done really well for ourselves, and there was times when we did, but that's what it costs. I remember one year was like the first time we did really well. It's like, wow, we made $1 million in sales. I was like, holy shit. I was like, how much did it cost us? They're like, it cost us $1.1 million to make that money. I was like, perfect. It's like,
yeah.
I was expecting like 900 or something.
No. So it's like, no matter what, with the machine shop based, American manufacturing based business, like no matter how well we did, it cost us a lot, either personally or financially, to make that happen.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people understood that. Like, friends that like, Vic at Circuit, like, always a huge supporter of FBM. He's like, some of the guys just think you're like rich or something, that you're just like crying wolf. And I was like, can you tell them that I'm not? Because like FBM had like a stronghold in certain areas. Like you'd go somewhere and it'd be like
a lot of them,
FBMs. Like that was our scene. So if you're like within that scene and you don't know me or behind the scenes that well, you're like, oh, FBM's like badass. They got all these. Everyone's riding their bikes.
Yeah. But
they don't realize that it was like a very heavy effort to keep the fucking ship afloat for a long time.
What is there? So you said you officially shut down in January 2020, and then obviously it got weird for a couple months, and then the bike industry took off.
Wouldn't have happened for us in that situation. The bike industry took off for people that were getting stuff outsourced and overseas. And I've had this inner dialogue a lot, like, we still wouldn't have had money to like keep the machine shop running on all cylinders. Like, and people were buying bikes, but they weren't buying they wouldn't have been buying a ton of FBM frames.
Yeah, I disagree. Because I feel like everybody sold a lot of shit, Profile was scared for a little bit, but they're still getting, in peak COVID, like their aluminum place shut down, and they're like, well, if we don't get aluminum, we can't make no fucking stems, like, or sprockets or whatever, but.
Maybe we could have sold a lot of stuff. Yeah. I don't think we could have afforded to make more stuff.
Yeah.
So it would have been like.
And you would have had to weather that 3 or 4 months of really weird time where everybody thought shit was just gonna.
Yeah, and like at that point too, it's like things were so weird. Like, dudes with families, like as part of the business, like they, can only go on a wing and a prayer so long where they got to prioritize what's really important. You know.
What are you most proud of from FBM? Like a single thing, whether it's this one tour or the ghetto jams. I think you kind of already said it, but just let's lay it out there.
I've had this thing going on in my head for the last couple of years about the American dream and how FBM participated in what I thought was the American dream, and then I'd gotten hurt really bad, and I like couldn't even afford to go to a doctor and like get new glasses or get my teeth fixed. And it was like, I got really bummed. And I was thinking about all this stuff that like, how all in me and like the FBM guys went with what our dreams were, and how I got bitter. Like we talked about earlier, I was like, fuck dude, like I went all in on this and I can't even afford to like get new glasses. And I got super bummed, and like, I got to thinking about it, and I was like, the American dream wasn't what we were making and selling and like manufacturing as a machine shop company with FBM. The American dream was this community that we'd built in this network around like DIY ethos and like friendship and like helping each other and being there and like doing the best we can. And like, I'd had this like moment where I was just like, dude, like that is fucking cool. Like I've got lifelong friends because of like what we did with FBM. I didn't come out of it, financially sound or even emotionally sound, but like I came out like as wealthy as I could possibly dream of in relationships, experiences, memories, accomplishments. Like that community that we built with FBM is what I'm most proud of. Like there'd be dudes out there swinging hammers at events that we're doing that like I'd only met once before, and they'd have an FBM tattoo and they'd be drinking at 8 a.m. So like all this cool stuff like was not the tangible thing that I thought was going to be the result. It was that process, that paycheck in the process. It was like, here's all this cool stuff, but I didn't realize it at the time. And after the fact, I'm like, dude, that's been it the whole time. It was the people. Like FBM is the people. It's for the people. And that's where that phrase came from. It was like, it was never me. It was never the team dudes. It was never the staff or the frames or the bus. It was the people. It was all of us together collectively doing something that was bigger than each one of us individually. And that's what I'm most proud of. And the people that like afforded me those opportunities.
That's cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah, that is something to be proud of. You know, I mean, just in the sense of like, you could, I don't know, just, as you said, the FBM tattoo and stuff, but just getting these people together, getting 1,000 people together.
It's
and
crazy.
That's, I mean.
I'm
People
so
scream for involvement, right?
Yeah.
I think, like you said,
And-
one
and-
thing you stood on was like FBM involved people.
Well, I think like more so than like the product that we sold or the image that we sold something authentic. We didn't sell. We made something authentic that people could be a part of, and that was way more important than the flavor of the month. It was like, you know, and people would show up at FBM events riding kinks or fits or Colts or whatever, but it was still part of FBM, regardless of like who they were, how they rode, what they were doing. When they were at these events, they were part of FBM and what FBM was doing. Like, and it wasn't like me like being like on this throne of chaos and mayhem, being like, ha ha ha. It was like, come on, dudes, let's do this.
Yeah.
You know, and it was that's fucking cool.
Yeah. It takes a special person to create and, you know, and inspire and bring people together and in so many different ways and so over such a long period as you have. So you should be proud of that.
And I am, and I'm stoked, but I'm also like, some of it I look back and I'm like, I was doing that for myself. Like, I needed to do this stuff to keep myself from feeling crazy or focusing on the bummers or like, it's like I look at a lot of the stuff I've done over the years and it's like, oh, those are just notes to myself. Like, get stoked, like have fun every day. Like, you know, like let's do all this, you know, build your own fun. It was like, I was trying to like keep myself stoked, but I had to create resonance within my community, whether I was realizing it or not, to like, you know, an echo chamber of stoke.
Yeah. Well, do you consider that to be a negative then?
No, I think I'm lucky that I had, you know, it's kind of like, you know, you're at the gas station and you got no money to put gas in the tank, but, you know, you can rely on your homies to like, you know, drum up a couple bucks. It was like,
you call somebody. Yeah.
You know, it's like collectively, I understood that I could harness the energy of our group to like carry me through times where I needed help, you know, like.
Is there ever a chance that FBM will be around in a brand in any capacity?
I'm retired.
I mean, the outpour of like, if you did some re-release shirts of fucking, you could print a couple hundred, I would assume, and they would sell.
I think to answer that question more fairly, FBM exists with or without me or a product.
Mm-hmm.
It exists within like the idea that people are going to go on trips with their friends. They're going to hype up, you know, their scene and like just do good, just try to do cool stuff with like the means that they have available to them. And I think like that's like the more abstract answer.
Yeah.
As far as trying to do business, I'm not interested in doing that.
Okay.
I think I'd gotten pretty burned out on consumerism and marketing and like trying to make ends meet with FBM. That like
by dropping coffee.
I do want to do like an FBM.
It's a different world. It's you know
what I need to do now is different than what I needed to do when FBM was a normal functioning business. But I do want to do like an FBM family reunion event at some point.
That'd be awesome.
Where like it's not based around like.
Can you get Maniac to do a one-handed X-up?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
If he shows up, it's on.
Thank you.
But like, what my focus is now is just try to like recreate some of the energies and ideas and vibes, regardless of trying to like pay the bills.
Yeah.
So I don't want to like complicate it by trying to like reissue an old product or team up with another.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I almost think of it as in a sense of like
No rules though, just guidelines.
Exactly.
Like, for me right now, I'm not interested in trying to do business that same way.
Okay.
But I'm still interested in trying to do cool stuff.
Well, I mean, like the fucking shirts out of the back of the car type thing. Like where it goes full circle to the very beginning and it's like, hey, we got this fucking stupid shirt. Do you want to buy it? Okay, I mean, if not, like whatever. You know, like I got $80 or $160 in this.
I mean, towards the end, we were like literally like stencil spray painting shirts at events to like pay for gas.
Yeah.
So it had come full circle, and
Yeah.
like to some degree that'll always be there. I don't have any plans or ideas to try to like reintroduce product line, but who knows what the future holds, you know, like.
Well, let's, did you start Radshare as a idea of FBM? Like, could you see the writing on the wall at FBM and it was...
Part of me wanted to like stay involved in BMX, and I was looking for a way to do that. But I think it came up a little bit more organically as like I'd gotten hurt pretty bad and I thought I broke my neck and I wasn't wearing a helmet, and I started wearing a helmet after that. And it was all in like the same like time frame.
Trails.
Yeah. I've got like this, all my fingers are still jacked. I like did a one-hander and didn't get it back on.
Yikes.
Pile drive myself. Put a dent in the berm. It was fucking cool.
Not fun.
No, it sucked. But that was when I was like going through this like thing of like understanding the American dream and like my role, and like I was feeling a little bit like a victim of my own dumb circumstances, feeling sorry for myself.
What was me? Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, but the local pump track in Richmond where I ride a lot became like a situation where the community was coming together, and it was like the city allowed it. It was like cool. So it was like a different vibe than like trails or backyard ramps or street riding. So where it was like more inclusive. And specifically what was the catalyst for Radshare was this kid Jonathan kept showing up from the neighborhood. And it's like in a little bit of like, you know, there's like neighborhoods surrounding that park that aren't like...
This is in Richmond.
Richmond, Virginia, yeah. There's some like tough neighborhoods. So this kid Jonathan's coming down and he's like got a janky bike and it's falling apart, and it's like, but he could ride and he's stoked, and you could see that spark there. And it's like, here, ride my bike, dude. And he's just able to jump stuff. He's just got it. You know, he's just got that. And then one day he just shows up with his bike, just dragging it to the spot. I'm like, fuck, dude. So I went and bought a kink complete and gave it to him. And I had been kind of brainstorming with this dude, Nate Hanger, that I would become riding buddies with. And in that moment, we'd kind of like created Radshare with the idea of... The idea was to help this kid Jonathan get a bike. He was going to be a BMX'er one way or another. And we had the opportunity to like bridge that gap from like where he was and where he could go. And like, it wasn't like a business plan, just like FBM. It wasn't like we didn't have a business plan or like a marketing meeting or anything like that. It was like, here's like a need. We have like the means to try to do something. And I'd gotten so burned out on wanting to try to sell stuff that I really just wanted to sort of share my BMX experience with the world. I'd become I felt so lucky with what BMX had afforded me personally, even throughout like the ups and downs of FBM, that I was like, if I can take some of my experience and like my connections in the BMX industry to like create, even for one kid, the next opportunity to do a little bit better and to close that opportunity gap a little bit, then that's my responsibility. And that's like what we started doing with Radshare. And then like, it's called Radshare, the Arts of Fun. And it's like, you know, we get free helmets for kids, and we try to get bikes for kids that don't have the resources to get bikes. And like, it's been like wildly well received and fulfilling in a totally different context as a BMX'er, to be able to like do something that isn't self-serving. It's fucking cool, man.
I got to experience a little bit of that when I was there.
You were at the Rumble,
yeah, the Rumble, and to dig a little bit deep within myself to understand the situation of like not having a bike or can't afford one, and to seeing a lot of kids that look like myself. You know, it's like seeing those kids. It was like, wow, that kid is small and they know how to ride this bike like this. I can imagine being that small riding something like this, but because of like you showing up, you have the willing to share, you have the will to just be there. You know, it's like all the things that you personally been through, and a lot of the stuff that you've done was created based off of like you contributing you and what you love to do and what your friends love to do to BMX, which kind of helped like nurture that situation to what it is.
And like, to be in a fortunate enough situation, even with all the woe is me, it's like even when times are tough, there's been a BMX bike there for me. And because of that BMX bike, I've had like this great community. And like within that, like with Radshare, it's like, you know, Rob Tibbs, he's like a huge supporter of Radshare. He like donates office space to us at his business so that we can like try to do more. And, you know, and then we work and like staying with the same ideas with FBM. We have a community of people like John Lee's on the board, you know, the Colonel and this dude Crescent and Nate Hanger. We all work together, pooling our resources and experiences together. And, you know, we work with people like Caleb Bolton and, you know, Craig, this one of the dudes that does Cheap Seats Racing in Richmond. Like, we all work together to try to like, you know, like BMX is like very like, if you look at it, it's one way, but there's all these like underrepresented scenarios that like we can work together to like give kids an opportunity to see some of like what's awesome about BMX.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's just as simple as like a free helmet.
Yeah.
And they got their own stickers to put on it. And it's not some
They have
department
a place
store.
to put those stickers.
Yeah.
And
And
like,
it's like,
yeah.
they're like, yeah, this is mine now. And they got some skin in the game. And like, you know, if we have an opportunity to give a kid a bike, it's like, that's like a whole, like bikes aren't cheap.
I never personally I give away bike parts and stuff or whatever, like whenever I have them, but like I was able to give away a bike at the time I was riding for GT, and I think it was you on the mic, and it was one kid that extremely talented, and I gave him a bike. You know, it was like, dude, this is crazy. But
could you see it in his face? Like, could you see I don't know, like you get that when you're giving somebody something, you can see that elation, like when we gave the radio bike away.
Well, yeah, to me in that moment it made me realize that this isn't about me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was like, it wasn't about who I am, where I come from, but like what I'm contributing right now.
But all the things that brought you to that moment and who you are, like, made that situation that much more awesome. And
Yeah.
like, and you were able to take some of the magic that BMX has given you and pass it along to that next kid, and that ripple effect just keeps going outward. And
yeah,
like,
because like you said, some of the, like even the situation with how Animal, like it's like a few of the things how they started, like you guys didn't make that be that way. It just happened to be that you guys were around and that created that. But also with that situation and decisions I personally made to be any part of BMX, but like based off the things that you've done, you created that, and I got to be a part of it. So it was like all that was like,
and like
very organic.
And like, for me, like I'd done so much stuff that I was stoked on and proud of, to be able to like see an opportunity to like share that with other people, and like, God, that's cool, man. It's like this kid, even if it's for one summer, is going to have a better life, you know, like one jump, one bike, one helmet at a time. If we can make people's lives a little bit better, then the world can be a little bit better. Like, I can't change the world personally, but if I can change like one kid's life for like even like a weekend, that's pretty big.
Yeah,
that's huge.
Like,
That's huge.
you know, like, and like BMX has it's like, when people think of like what a BMXer looks like, you know, like when you got to come to Richmond, like these kids got to see riders that look like them, or the people in their community that don't look like TV stars the same way.
Yeah.
It like, that opens up a whole nother world of like, you know, possibilities for people, you know, like, and like, I'm lucky that I'm again in a community where people support what we do and enable us to be able to share the arts of fun and what's important about BMX. And, you know, like, we, you know, with Drop In, we do a Rad Share roast, and it's like every 3 bags we sell affords us one helmet to give away to a kid. You know, we sponsor Mulally Skate Park up in New York. We bring bikes up to them when we can, and we give out free helmets to all the kids there. And like, brands like Shadow and Sunday and Kink and all these companies that we used to compete against for market share with FBM are now supporting what I'm doing, or what we're doing, to make BMX better and more accessible for more people. And it's crazy, but people are so generous and so supportive that it's like, it's such a different like dynamic, and like
A whole other side.
it's
of
like
the industry.
it's like I've got a whole nother breadth of like you know, I've had a second win like 5 times now, and this is a whole new one. It's like, and, you know, and like people are like with us. It's not like, oh, you know, like there's no like,
It's authentic.
Yeah.
It's. I think people want to probably be
People
more
are
involved in something.
people are
authentic
stoked
than anything.
because, you know, like they love seeing people get stoked too, and they're not trying to compete for the same market share. And it's like, eliminating that from my life has been like wild. It's like, you know, we'd always do events, and, you know, Nuno would be like, yeah, we'll send you guys some stuff, or like the dudes from, you know, this, you know, whatever, different brands. But now they're like, hey, what do you guys need? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, whatever you feel like sharing with us, we'll pass it along, and like, give a kid a set of cranks or a set of pedals or like even just a tube,
Yeah.
and like teach him how to fix his own bike,
Mm-hmm.
him or her. That's really cool.
Yeah, it elevates their BMX experience, and instead of that bike breaking, etc., it allows them to fix it and continue on instead of sitting in the closet because they don't have that support system to
like,
teach them how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have access to like good equipment, it's gonna diminish your experience
Mm-hmm.
with BMX, which is something we always thought of with FBM. It's like, give a good product to the people. They're gonna be stoked. They're gonna enjoy it. And I'd meet dudes on tour. They'd be like, I've had this bike since 2009. I was like, cool. Wish you'd bought 3 more since then.
Yeah, right.
But like, kids like show up on a pump track at the pump track or the skate park, dragging their bike in. They're not going to stay BMXers.
No.
But if we have an opportunity to help them become BMXers and like they develop their own scenarios, like some of the kids that we started helping out with Radshare are buying their own bikes now.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
cool.
cool.
And they're like, some of them are on BMX racing teams and like going to like state and national races.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Like, that's cool.
It is.
What are your ultimate guide? I don't want to say the word goals. So ultimate guidelines for Radshare. Is it kind of?
I don't know. Like, we want to just try to help people to enjoy
Find
their
something
lives.
to love.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be BMX. It's like we want to keep expanding on what we're able to do to help people, but we don't have like a specific trajectory. Like, one of the things we're doing when I get home is working with this dude Tyler, who works at the high school where some of these kids go to school, and we've got a bunch of Sunday bikes and we got a bunch of helmets, and we're going to develop an after school program.
Mm.
Wow.
So like, that's one of our goals. But to work with like community centers and like skate parks that have underrepresented people, like help give them a voice and give them a vehicle. Like, to me, like a BMX bike, ultimately it's just like the most empowering thing that an individual can get. And if you can empower yourself through BMX or like from learning, like whether it's riding BMX or becoming a photographer or building ramps, like that empowerment goes so much further than like just learning tricks on a bike. So that's like our goal really, is to try to like just to try to make the world better, one jump, one bike at a time, and,
Yeah.
and it's pretty fluid in how we're going to go about doing that, but just trying to like look at the BMX landscape, see where we can help, and just try to like pitch in when we can.
What?
No,
All right. Talking about Rumble in Richmond and Julian Molina.
Whew!
So, how did it make you feel being that something that you helped create can bring so many different types of people from all over the world and to experience what we all saw him do?
To put a more important level, I saw multiple people say that was the best thing that they saw all year.
So there's a few moments in BMX history. That's one of them right there.
Yeah.
That picture of Vic Murphy. There's the picture of Matt Hoffman on the old
The
quarter
blue
pipe
yeah.
in Oklahoma. And then the Julian moment. Those were all in like the same ballpark for me. So like, to watch that Julian scenario unfold and to see his magic as a BMXer, like just like inspire so many people in that moment, and to have been like lucky enough to have been a part of that moment, it was like heavy, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was like it took a minute like to like even understand like what was going on. Like afterwards I was like, that might have been one of the coolest things that I was ever like, I helped facilitate.
Yeah.
Like, I obviously didn't ride the bike, but I built that jump. Me and my
Mm-hmm.
friends built that jump, and we put on the event, and we got all you guys there to create such an inclusive and fun environment for my mom was at that event.
Wow.
Like, for 20 some odd years I've been doing events. I've never had my family at an event. My mom came out, like my friends' kids were there, like, people from my whole history as a BMXer were there, like all levels, all skills, like men, women, children, everything, like every different type of person. And then that moment was like 11. That moment was like the boiling point of all this really cool stuff in my life, like funneling into one moment. And Julian was like the dude, and like I was on a high. I'm still like,
I was sitting
Yeah.
in a tent with him because we were like just sitting over there. It's like I think they were still riding the trails the dirt jumps in the back on the other side, and when everybody came over, he was literally sitting across from me. He was talking. He's like, I want to jump it, and he was shaking. Like I can tell he ride dirt jumps all the time, and this is a dirt jump. So it's like, okay, then he got up, started pedaling around the track, and next thing you know, you see Larry like towing him in, and it's like, what
a crazy concept it is to be like, for Larry to be like, I can go fast enough.
I thought
to
that
make
was
you jump this jump.
I thought that was such a amazing illustration of what BMX means to me. Like those two, like he basically cleared it with Larry towing him in, which is insane. One of the most like amazing feats in BMX that I've ever witnessed.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of just joking. I'm like, I've got the mic, and I'm like, I don't think he's got no speed. Anyone got a motorcycle you can tow him in on? And Gary, the track director, I was like, is that cool? I was like, I didn't even think about it. I was just saying it, talking shit again.
Yeah.
And Gary's like, yeah, I don't care. And my buddy Matt, he's like, oh, I've got a motorcycle, like. And I think he expected me to be like, no. I was like, all right, cool. And he's like, wait, how fast do I go? I was like, third gear, like quarter throttle. And then I was like, no. Second gear, half, 2/3 throttle.
You have no idea what you're saying.
But I did have an idea because we did a thing where our friend Mikey jumped the bus and flipped it. And he was towed in by our buddy Brett on an old DT 175 that had no speedometer.
Mm-hmm.
So when they figured out the speed, it was second gear, like half cracked. So I was drawing on that memory, but it was completely irrelevant to the situation.
Yeah.
But like the first one, like it was close, and then like they figured it out, and then the second one he cleared it. I think it was the second time. And it was dumb luck that I said second gear, like half cracked, like
he went so high. It was like,
he's really
still
high.
holding on to the bike.
And then that was it. Like I think he wanted to go again and try something over it, but I was like, you cleared it. That's it. The contest is over.
Yeah.
The whole place is just like, whoa.
Yeah, there's no.
It was like a hallelujah moment.
Yeah.
Like that was like.
It made it better that he was like nosing in, and you're like,
dude,
it's gonna happen.
Oh, man. It gave me chills just thinking about like.
It was like a scripted moment. Like that could have been a movie, and it was like a cool movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a shitty BMX movie. That was rad.
Yeah.
Like so to your question, that was one of my favorite moments in my participation in life as a BMX'er.
That's powerful.
Wow.
Yeah.
And like I hold that image of him getting towed in, like right up there with that and the Hoffman picture.
That's cool. There's got to be something to be said for the path you've taken from the Fab Old Men 5-year Mayhem, the Albert Street light bulbs, facilitating that, and then it's like Soup Gang, tour bus, giving kids bikes, like or something like.
But I think there's
like a fucked up rainbow.
Yeah,
like some sort of thing.
I think there's something in there
locked up in Georgia.
Yeah, exactly.
There's something in there that strings it all together.
Exactly,
and it's like, and I always go back to that word community. I think that like being a part of a community is the constant in all that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was like, wild or outrageous or like caring and sharing.
Is it wrong to say like that you're like a leader in the community? Like because I feel like you keep saying community, but there's also like a spark or a person that
I think
that forces things to happen, and I feel like you're always that force.
I'm a hype man. I'm like a ringleader. I don't know.
A ringleader maybe is leader is a weird. I know.
I hesitate to use the word leader, but I definitely know that like
a beacon or something. Like because I feel like you're a hype man, but you're getting people fired up to create something.
I think there was like a time I remember. Nobody's going to get out there and do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've kind of, in one way or another, always understood that. So I've always felt comfortable saying, hey, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
But it was never like, I'm going to do this or this is me. And so I've always said we. And like when I've referred to FBM days, I always said we were doing this. So it's not like I'm doing this or. So like, I think I've always been comfortable in being like, all right, we could do this, and I hesitate to use the word leader, but I would definitely say like I'm down to get the party started.
Yeah, I have this like vision of like everybody standing around looking at something, and then you just like are the first person to step out and like start doing the thing, and everybody's like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
But it's like,
You know?
but like my people inspired that and taught me that, you know,
Yeah.
like I learned that from Kelly, and like I learned that from Tag, and I learned that from Gilly, and I learned that from the people that I'm around nowadays. Like everybody's doing that on some level where I'm at. I think that because of the time span and my status within BMX, kind of like sometimes I get too much credit for what we've done. And sometimes that creates a little friction. But because I have a voice and I try to use it for something that's positive and like involves everybody, I think it's easy for me to pick up a little momentum and be like, all right, let's do it. And people are like, oh, okay, yeah. Fuck it.
Yeah. I mean, BMX needs people like you, more people like you, but we definitely need you specifically.
You guys are lucky to have me.
Well, we are, man.
Yeah,
Look,
we
think
are.
if we removed you, think of how many moments and things and you know elements of BMX we would have missed out on, from the videos, from the shirts, from the products, yes, but like also the events and the people that you help to bring along all across the country.
And,
and
you know,
stuff,
I
man.
think
Like,
we also did a pretty good job with FBM and like
I don't dole out compliments on this podcast
Keep 'em coming.
very,
Keep 'em
very
coming.
often.
Yeah,
like I'm not a complimenter.
keep them coming. I like
but-
it. I'm pretty. I'm
but-
beautiful. I'm
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
you
are.
deserve compliments, man. Like you
Do you
done a lot.
do you stretch or anything?
Stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ever do this one? Do this.
Pat
Stretch it
myself
all-
on the back.
There you go. You got it.
I
See?
got you.
That's another one.
Wow.
You already knew.
I like your
it.
style.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that. You know, like I'm. It's all like none of this is unintentional, but it's also not planned.
Yeah.
So it's like we tried hard to make shit happen, and like it's. But once you get the momentum going and you have the people like there to like help you make it happen,
Yeah.
it just kind of like becomes natural. You know, it's like everything you do, you got to drop in to start the day. You know, like.
Plug.
But
I'll put a buy now graphic. Maybe Tom will. Tom's the editor. Sorry.
Hey Tom, make me look good.
He is locked up over there.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I think, but it's just trying to carry the momentum forward. You know, it's like I look back at like some of my least stoked times, and it's like because I was sitting still, I wasn't like I was resting on my laurels. I was like, you know, it's like oh, we got it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you can't coast. You always got to be hustling. You always got to be putting in the work. You know, like whether it's riding, art, digging on the jumps. You know, working on events. Just like you always have to be putting energy forward. Otherwise, you know, seize up.
How much of your day is consumed by, you know, Rad Share and drop in? Like what's the ratio of stuff
Rad Share is more project based
Yeah.
right now. So like the day-to-day stuff depends on if we're doing an event or a promotion, or if I'm like it's not a full-time gig.
Do you guys, I don't know if this is a weird question or not, but is there like, are you at the level where like a corporation is like, hey, we have money at the end of the year that we want to donate, or are you looking for that?
Vans
like,
has been very generous with supporting Radshare
that's cool.
and getting their riders involved, and also financial support
That's
for
awesome.
helping put on events and create situations.
Because the money you give away at Rumble and Richmond doesn't just magically appear from
do.
helmets.
That's all from
that
like
you give away.
No, that's all from fundraising. Like
Yeah.
and like the guys from Breakless have been very generous. They've been, you know, they gave money to give out for best trick at the Rumble. Like, you know, Vans obviously supporting what we do, like from a promotional point of view, but also like, you know, they're like, hey, we'll help you guys do some cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yes, like I got to say thanks to Vans for supporting, you know, helping us get events going and helping us bring riders out to our events. 12. So yeah, like we've gained a lot of traction, but it's still very grassroots and small, and like it's not a full-time gig yet,
Yeah.
but it's aiming that way.
That would be amazing if it became like a constant thing, because that would be, I mean, it's just better all around.
And
obviously.
we're like learning and trying to figure out like grant writing scenarios where we can get more resources to try to like, you know, like one of the holdups with the after school program is like, how do we get the kids and the bikes from the school to like the BMX track?
Yeah.
And it's like, there's a lot of liability in there. You can't just be like, all right, hop in the van.
Yeah.
You know, so like
You can't do what I've been doing the last 20 years.
it's like these are young adults, like
Candy trail.
yeah. No, that's weird, man. But you know, drop in is also, it's a very modest, both situations are still like all volunteer style.
Yeah.
And like going back to Tibbs, like Tibbs has been very generous with giving us a space to help develop these ideas. And
His screen printing business.
he does
correct?
large format printing. It's called
Okay.
Cut and Bleed. But he like does a lot of stickers for BMX companies, and like poor boy Steve, like I'll go back and see Rob, and he'll be printing off a batch of stuff for that, or
I should have him print stickers for us.
and or like yeah, you should. And like I've seen him making stuff for Hoffman Bikes or Powers Bike Shop, or you know, stuff for us. He makes all the coffee labels for us, and like
okay.
the Rad Share stickers and like the banners that we do.
Okay.
But he does like large format printing. It's like, but he's one of those dudes behind the scenes that's like doesn't get enough credit, and like Richmond's got a really vibrant and diverse and really cool BMX scene, and people like Rob make it rad.
Yeah.
And there's like a bunch of key players behind the scenes that are like just working class, like regular dudes that are like either wildly talented or committed or dedicated to like the scene, but not for like applause. It's just what they do.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like a way of being.
you know, like there's like these guys that have a set of trails called Surfing Billies, and like Bert and all these dudes make jumps, but the city allows it, and they bring them dirt, and they make jumps for everybody to come ride. And this dude Kit works for the parks department, so he helped advocate for trails to be like shared space in Richmond. So like all these things are like
local heroes.
It's really cool, and like all this good energy like just makes it better for everybody. And it's like I think that's kind of why like I ended up in Richmond, was because this kind of stuff was happening, and it like helped me rediscover some of those sparks from the original FBM crew that like made it seem like anything was possible. And over the years, you know, you get clouded by like life-changing and like day-to-day stuff, but Richmond's got a lot of that good energy that helps me like see the potential in situations.
Wow.
And that's pretty awesome. Like,
It seems like Richmond is a pretty progressive, like cool area from what I can tell.
it's crazy. I mean, Richmond itself is like a wild history, you know. It's like real big
pulling down those statues and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, like during like the George Floyd era, like Richmond was like a very volatile, like you know, the studio that I, you know, at Tibbs's place I'd be riding my bike to, I would pass the Lee Monument where like a lot of these social scenarios were boiling pot situations. Like, you know, it was heavy. It was on the cover of National Geographic.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And like I'm seeing this stuff firsthand with my own eyes, and like all this comes into play with how I view my role in BMX nowadays. And like to be in Richmond, such a like diverse and unique city, like I think it helps enable me to do things a little differently from how I'd done them or how I would do them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
definitely felt very like I've been to a few different places, and that besides San Diego is the only other place I've ever been to that I can see myself living.
Oh, really?
And to me, it's like it's similar to where I'm from, but completely different. You know, and it's like I don't ever want to live back home, but like going to Richmond and meeting other people, seeing how everybody communicated. From just pedaling around the city, I did me, Julian, and I want to say Brad pedaled around for a while, and it was just like this place is pretty sick. You know, people see you, they wave, they say hi. You know, it makes you feel welcome.
City.
Yeah, it is.
But it's a small big city, but it's like it's the capital of the Confederacy. Like it's kind of weird.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, you know, it's a southern city, so like, it's got a lot of different like. There's a lot of ingredients in that, and it's like. It's a great place for like going to and from. Also, it's centrally located, and like
I want to go.
Come on out. Yeah. Let's have a session.
Kind of lost where I was going with stuff.
We can party. We can keep it going.
Drop it and let's talk about artwork.
Artwork, I like it.
A constant.
I've always had a lot of restless energy and some kind of creative need to express myself, and FBM has always been a vehicle for that. And then nowadays with Drop In, I'd always kind of like doodled coffee graphics for some reason. I don't really know why. So like that's been like the next step for me, was to like create a scenario that's like, I guess, a small business where art and my interests all kind of like meet. And that's like my latest venture.
That's
Dream
cool.
collabs.
What's up?
Have any collaborations?
Unclicked.
Unclicked drop in coming soon. Sorry, Traction. We just hijacked your party. We did a cool thing where we did a full roast thing with Paris Benegas,
Mm-hmm.
and we used the money from those sales to buy a bike that she gave to a young woman.
Oh wow.
Was it at the Rumble in Richmond or no?
That was a different situation. We gave her one of her frames. She gave one of her frames to a young woman rider from Colombia, I think. Maybe.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then we did another event called the Pump Track Worlds,
Mhm.
like a tongue-in-cheek event, where she gave a complete bike to I think a 9 or 10-year-old girl named Lorna. And so we're trying, so drop in, we kind of run tandem with Radshare, so use these situations to do something a little bit more than just sell stuff. And so yeah, we're starting to do some collabs, and we do a couple things, like we do a coffee with Circuit BMX. We did a thing with Vans for like a holiday giveaway for their team riders, where like I got to do the artwork and provide the coffee for them for like a little holiday kit that they did. So like it opens up a whole different world, because it's not like competing brands. There's BMXers that make coffee, but it's not like frame brands or like a shoe company or like a component brand. It's like, it's kind of like exists within its own category. It's not a conflict of interest. So it opens up a whole new world. And like going back to being on tour with FBM, I'd be always going through these scenarios in my head of like, how are we going to keep the doors open? Like, what can we do to like move forward? And I was at the coffee shop and I was thinking about those dudes that have had bikes that they've been riding that they're so stoked on for 10 years. And I'm like, God, they've got these expensive, really cool hand-built bikes, but they don't need to replace them. So why would they? And I'm on my second $5 coffee. And I'm like, wait a sec.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's a different way to think about things.
Yeah.
And that kind of was like part of a new way to think about like how I was going to express myself and try to like.
There's a $1 trillion industry, right?
I have no idea.
Coffee's like one of the biggest
I'm
industries.
I'm so new to the coffee game too that it's like being a young BMXer again. Where like once you're in the industry and like on the other side of it, it's like you understand that the ceiling is not infinite, that there's not like endless sales. It's like, but with coffee, like I don't know anything about it. It's like as far as like anything's possible again.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's so cool to be like with Radshare and Drop In, to be not burned out, not jaded, not be able to see a ceiling. Like there's no ceiling for how much you can share.
Yeah.
Like I can't give the whole world a bike, but I can try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like
Circling back to kind of the hustling aspect of the artwork. You said you're like, yeah, I brought my stuff. I'm hustling for gas.
I mean,
like
I sold enough paintings before I left to cover gas money to get here.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky enough that people want to support what I'm a part of, that I've gotten through like the last couple of years, like in part with selling artwork on Instagram. And like, that's
huge.
That's a big deal.
Yeah,
like,
that's huge.
And it's modest. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not selling paintings for $1,000.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, people like what I've done, and I try to share as much as I can for, an affordable but fair price, but I do these things called gas money prints or gas money paintings, where it's just like I sell art for the cost of a gas tank.
Yeah.
Tank of gas. Granted, that's different in California because it's $1 more a gallon out here.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, it's like I want to do art anyhow.
Well, there's like reoccurring themes. Obviously, the brick and the board, the coffee. I think you've had, the soup. There was the X's on the beer for a while and stuff like that. Like, is there?
I think I just kind of have my gimmicks.
Yeah.
It's like, like you go to, if you're a contest rider, you've got your tricks.
Yeah.
Kind of got
tail
my
whips.
So these are my, like, people like the brick and board. They identify with it. It's like, I got it tattooed on me when I was 26 years old. And it became an FBM graphic soon after.
It's funny you pointed there, and I thought of the chain.
The chain was on this side.
Yeah. Did you ever see his chain bracelet?
No.
So
Go ahead.
me and Tag and Gilly put on bike chains as bracelets when we were like 14, and we put them on like with the chain tool. So the only time they ever came off was when we went to jail or like to the hospital. And mine was only off 2 or 3 times in the course of like 25 years. And it had worn down. I have it at home. I could probably send you a picture of it. it had worn down so much on the inside that it like took that shape right there, which is, it had lost it like almost wore through to the pins from being on for so many years. And when Tag passed, I finally took the chain off and I got the tattoo as like a, you know, memorial, you know, in memory of Mike Tag.
Yeah, it's great. It was striking to see. It almost looked like it had been machined down to be smooth on the inside.
Yeah,
but
so
it was
like
actually
It's almost
just,
like if you sat on the same metal spot for a while, it creates like a
like the inside of the chain, the outside of the chain was the same shape as a normal chain. The inside was almost flat from 20 some odd years of wearing it, and that was like, it was kind of like a symbol of like our dedication to like our friendship and what we were doing, and like we just never. It was like, it wasn't something we like gave much thought afterwards, but it was weird taking it off. It was like, I'm naked.
Yeah, I imagine it feel pretty weird. How did they take it off at jail?
I forget. I think they just popped it off. This is like, granted, I haven't done the jail stuff in like 20 some odd years.
I just remember, I could just imagine them just being like, we don't have a fucking chain breaker.
They're like, you got to take that off. I was like, I can't. And they broke it off. I forget. There was like a popped link at that point.
Oh, okay.
But I remember it being like a curious situation. But I'm not proud of the jail moments. Yeah, never done prison time, but I've been in jail a few times.
Yeah, that's
and I don't recommend it. They got the wrong kind of bars in there.
I feel like there's. I said this to my my wife, and she thought it was stupid, but I was like, I feel like as like a rite of passage for like being a man, it's like you gotta at least like get your ass kicked once. You know, like beat somebody up, get your ass kicked. I
don't disagree with you. I hate being on the wrong side of it, but it's like, but it's like, it's kind of how
it's a humbling experience.
It is,
you know.
I think rite of passage is the exact right terminology.
Exactly, yeah.
I think it's 100% point, but I don't say it's necessary. No. I don't think you should go out seeking any time behind bars or getting your ass whipped. But I think it's crucial for the development of like understanding as a BMXer. You have to run from the police from a spot. You have to run from some rednecks that are chasing you down. You know, maybe you have to wake up in the drunk tank with like a single serving box of Cheerios as a pillow.
Not your own shoe. Or
those experiences, man.
No shoes that time.
Too funny, man. Let's see. Let's hit the old. I feel like we've.
My favorite riders are the fast and loose guys, the Credence dudes, Trey Jones and what his crew are doing at events. And like most recently, I've been really hyped on Brad Sims and seeing what he's been able to do as a 36-year-old grown-ass man on a BMX bike.
Yes. Mm-hmm. When was the last time you blew fire? That's on there.
Shit. Beats me.
Are
we doing reader questions right now?
No, this is just I just had some notes. We pretty much I knew this was gonna happen, that we just cover everything anyways. Or like I said, organic.
How am I doing?
You're doing good.
Great. I do this thing like if it's nearing the end, I try to like kind of dig a little bit deeper in the sense.
I mean,
of, like,
ask me anything. I'm not embarrassed or ashamed of nothing.
Like just dig a little bit deeper about like trying to make things a little bit more relatable, because you're a very relatable guy, but also words of encouragement. Like this has to have nothing to do with BMX, or it could be anything, whatever you think of that, you know, what keeps you going on a day to day. You know,
I sometimes, so what I find myself doing, like as I get older, I kind of take inventory of like what I've been able to do as a BMXer, and I think that helps me like come up with like some of these answers. But it's like, I'm a regular ass dude, you know, working poor background, like didn't grow up with a lot of like resources, like. And I've managed to like get a tattoo from Matt Hoffman, have a character in a video game, be in a movie, like stand on the deck with like the best riders in the world, like be interviewed on Unclicked. Like I had a picture in a magazine. I had the cover of Chase magazine once, like all this stuff. Like, you know, we made like 10,000 frames at the FBM warehouse. And like, so that all these people that were, you know, riding bikes that I had a small part in sharing with the world. And now moving on to like Rad Share and Drop In and like being, you know, a 40-something-year-old BMXer, it's like I'm like overwhelmed by like all these like 13, overwhelmed by all these like opportunities that have been afforded to me, and like it keeps coming back to community. Like tenacity and just like being genuinely like enthusiastic and caring about what I'm doing enough to like stay committed, like try not to get so discouraged that I give up. And it's like, it's like putting yourself around the right people, paying attention to and giving credence to the people that support you, and like acknowledging like all these like great opportunities and like being thankful and like being appreciative of like all the stuff that I've been like lucky enough to be a part of, like creates more fuel to me to keep doing stuff. Wow. And like, it's so easy to be like, oh man, like I got to do this thing, but this didn't happen. Or I could choose to be like, man, didn't work out how I hoped, but goddamn, this is cool.
It was a hell of a fucking ride.
You know, like, and like, I can't look at any of my time in BMX and not be so like just overwhelmed and proud and like happy about it all. Like, you know, I've had some of the worst injuries, the dumbest luck. Like I've had some really tough situations that I've like, you know, managed to get through, but I did all that because I was a BMX'er, and like BMX taught me so much about like, you know, like the DIY aspects of life. It's like nobody's going to do it for you. So like you got to fucking pick yourself up by the, you know, pick your shit up off the ground and go. Like keep going, keep it moving. And like, no matter what it is, whether it's like if you want to be a pro rider or if you want to start a company or like you want to do art or whatever it is, it's like being dedicated to what you're doing and caring enough to keep at it. Like we never made one big impact with FBM or a Steve Crandall thing where it was like one thing that happened, but the compound of all these things happening over the years added value to what we did and made it seem like
mythical.
I don't say mythical, but it was like people paid attention to what we were doing because we'd always been a part of what we were doing.
Because I think from the outside, it's like they're like, oh, this fucking, oh, that's cool, but like there's this fucking contest back in the day. It was just this fucking parking lot. It was literally made out of fucking trash and they made a loop. You know, like it's mythical when you think of people telling somebody else of like how it was.
We have. And this all folklore is important.
Yeah.
It's how we pass along the culture of what we're doing. Like I've been in a very unique position to pass along the folklore and the culture of BMX to next generations. And that's another one of like the things that I would say is my legacy. But like, because we kept doing stuff, everything that we had continued to do was that much more noticeable or valuable to the people watching. Mm-hmm. So like, had we only done one of the thousands of things that we did, they'd be like, oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
But because we're doing that, all this stuff stacked on top, it starts to elevate in its like perception.
Yeah.
And like, you know, like we did a great job of like, you know, sharing our version of the culture of BMX with the world, and people are fucking hyped on that.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
So I got, I think, two more things, and maybe something else will pop up. But you had, apparently you have a book or something, but I didn't know anything about that actually for some reason. Yeah, dude, sick.
You wasn't paying attention.
I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, dude, sick. The podcast that Casey
that was
does.
Cool, right?
Yeah, and he did that segment. I recommend everybody listen to that podcast as well. It's super different from what we do. Mm-hmm. But I wish he did it more often, as always. But the places I've slept, he basically read a segment from a book that.
So I did a book. It was a split book with Matt Copeland.
Okay.
Where they were upside down from each other,
mm-hmm.
and they read to the middle. And me and Matt spent a lot of time traveling together, and he'd put out a couple books, so we collaborated on. That was my first book project, and it was basically a collection of travel essays. And one of them was called Places I've Slept, and it was a list of all the places I could remember that were like not typical sleeping scenarios,
yeah.
and that was part of the book.
And it, you know, Casey obviously runs through them, and there's obviously some interesting ones. And as for me, somebody who is fairly well traveled and has a fair share of memories, I was listening to it and I was like, fuck, I haven't done nothing, you know. Like literally it was just like, and that's, to me, that's like the what you get to take in the end, you know. Like I think when you're fucking old and crusty and you go, oh, you little shit, I fucking slept here, you know, like whatever you say, but like that is like.
But I think that also speaks as to what we were able to accomplish had a lot to do with how far we were willing to go to like get to the spot, you know, get to the contest, get to the event, do the trip. It's like some people some BMX people have never done anything that didn't consist of a tour van and hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Like we're like, yeah, I'll sleep in an abandoned boat or under an 18-wheeler or, like whatever, like by any means necessary was part of the gig.
I feel like throughout this podcast you've said every single slogan at FBM, and it's like so. But that's like it. I
know that sounds like I'm full of shit, but that's just,
like the hard way, the DIY, but that's real. Like it's funny that it comes out that steadfast.
That's how it happens, though. Yeah. Like all these ideas were like inspired by our lives, and like I said, there was no marketing meetings. Like we would have meetings, like, hey, what's the best way to do this? Yeah. But like, like some people like create brands and marketing ideas out of thin air, and it was vice versa for us.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it comes out in normal conversation is it is a reflection of how much of it's a reflection of your life and what's happened.
I mean, I would like to say that like we genuinely lived the message that we portrayed. Like there was no bullshit about it. There was times when we were bullshitting,
of course,
but like I don't think like. I mean, anyone that knows us would say, like that's really what happened.
I've been on an FBM trip. It was fucking awesome. Literally, we just camped the entire fucking time. Steve probably got mad at us once or twice, and it was like we made fucking Maniac made a fucking swath.
How cool is that though? Like that was another example.
We went to the Goonies thing, like fucking, cool. Really? It was fucking cool, man.
But like and I think like it was one part economics, but one part by design. It's like, if you're sitting around the campfire and we're all making food together and drinking beers and, telling tall tales and all that stuff, we're recounting the day. But if you're in a tour bus and everyone scatters to Taco Bell and Wendy's and goes to their hotel room and looks at their phone the whole time, you're traveling alongside people. Whereas like we were traveling together as like a group, as a team, as a unit. Mm-hmm. So everything we were doing was shared. Like the food was shared, the time was shared, our beers were shared, our bike parts were shared. Like, and that, to me, enriched the whole experience. It just made it that much more important. And, like, we're sitting there, like, recounting all the good times at the end of the day, which makes you appreciate, like, what you're a part of that much more, in my experiences.
And I think your memory tends to bank the uncomfortable moments a little bit more than the comfortable ones. You don't remember how good the bedroom was or the bed was at the hotel.
No one's going to be like,
the shitty one where you had a root.
You'll remember the fucked up Motel 6 in West Memphis. Yeah. You're not going to remember like the nice Hyatt that was like the third night in wherever some nameless, faceless like experience. But every tough, weird, obscure like nonsensical situation, it's like, and my life's been filled with those, and that's pretty fucking funny.
Yeah, you get the dichotomy of that, where it's like I've been on Gatorade trips where they had a Bloody Mary where they fucking peeled the tomato or froze it and then peeled the tomato, and that was the ice cube.
That's crazy.
In the hotel in Japan. And it was like, and then I've been on a fucking FBM trip where it was like, and I've been on shittier trips and FBM trips,
So, but like, I've also been lucky enough to experience like through like the whole Props Road Fools years, like experience that version of BMX. And then, being invited to participate with the Vans Pro Cup series, like I get to go to,
and you stay in nice places.
Yeah. Like I'm in a hotel in Malaga having coffee with Ruben Alcantara and Joe Rich and Colin McKay. And it's like, 3 months earlier, I was driving a black school bus, on some back road going to some weird, DIY spot. So it's like, it's pretty crazy to be on to experience like all aspects of it. But I think that also helps me have like a better understanding of like what all goes into all this. And and the people that do make stuff happen, like I really appreciate it. Like you with the podcast, you guys with this podcast, like, Trey with his event, like all the riders in their scenes making something happen, like doing it. Like I get to appreciate it that much more because I know what goes in from so many different angles of like how hard it is to keep BMX, vibrant and like shared and like, for the people.
But it's funny because I don't think you could see it, but the Hoffman poster, when I put it up last night, I obviously read it when I first got it, but Hoffman wrote on it like, "Thanks for all you've given."
How cool is that?
It's amazing.
How cool is it for the dude that's given the most of his body and his soul and spirit to BMX to be able to recognize that you too have given something awesome to BMX, and then like to be like, God damn, dude, that's humbling. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that dude, like,
It struck me a little bit when I put it up. I was like,
And
I'm sure I had the same
yeah.
reaction when I got it like 7 months ago or a year ago
but
or
it's like,
whatever it is. But
there's
like,
so much that happens within people's lives as BMXers that it's things can go unnoticed. But like, just take Hoffman for example. Like, he's made all this as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
made all this possible.
Yeah.
There's some key players that paved the road for all of us. Hoffman, I feel like stands at like with like a torch at the top of that road. Like,
yeah.
And he's like giving the torch like to everybody. He's just passing along
It's
torches.
all his flame.
It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, he's the dude, man. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I remember one day I woke up and I look at Instagram and it was 10 in the morning and he'd already posted a clip of himself riding, listening to Jane's Addiction of all things, doing a no-handed 540. And it was probably, and it was, this is like 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time. So he'd probably done that at 8 in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Like he woke up, rode vert by himself, managed to post a video of it. No-handed 540. Like, what is there, like a dozen people that can do that trick?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
3 over 40.
Yeah.
2 on a vert ramp.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And he's still doing it. And like,
With it by himself with the cell phone at the bottom of the ramp in case he falls.
yeah. And it's like,
Wow.
talk about like being committed to all the above.
Yeah.
Like, he's the most famous, the most celebrated, like one of the, the biggest name in BMX, but would be doing all that regardless, in my opinion. Like,
Yes.
he's still out there riding when he's like not hurt.
Yeah.
And he's also like he's given so much of his body to his art.
Yeah.
And that's inspiring to me. Like people like Matt, I owe endless like gratitude towards for like inspiring me. And like, it's like, some people like, even like someone like Rick Thorne, who has never been like the biggest name as a professional rider. Like, and he's, waxed and waned as like being a weirdo in BMX. And I love Rick, don't get me wrong. So inspired by the fact that every obstacle that's been put in front of him, he still rides. He still loves it. He's still getting people hyped. Wilkerson, the same way. Like, things probably didn't always work out for Wilkerson. Always the coolest dude. Still trying to get it. Like, always ripping. Like, there's these people that have been on, both sides of the wave. And they're just, when you see, like, on the backside of it, that they're still there getting it and doing it. Now I'm that dude. I'm on the backside of the wave and I'm fucking pumped. And it's because of these inspiring people. Like, inspiration on all sides in BMX. It's so cool. Like, it's so unique. Like, you're not going to work at like some middle management, like corporate America gig and be like, man, that guy's awesome at that computer job right there. Not to take anything away from anyone else, but like, I find inspiration in so many different angles of BMX. And like, thanks to Hoffman and like all these dudes that like, were just pioneers of like, and it's like their version of the DIY aspects of BMX. Like, nobody gave these dudes permission to do any of this stuff. And they all were just like, we're doing it.
Yeah.
And like that attitude has just been like, spreads out. Yeah. And it's like that ripple effect. And then each person takes their own version of BMX and creates their own ripple effects. And then, there's just some random kid in some like nowhere town that's like stoked and he's getting it.
Speaking of kid in nowhere town, I don't know if it's actually a nowhere town. You see that kid, Kieran pulled a fucking triple flare?
Oh my God, that was wild. That was a triple backflip turn flare, like a real flare.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Unreal.
Did you see it?
No, I don't even know how to, I can't even imagine.
He did it to fucking
3 backflips and then turn.
Yeah.
Like,
how?
I don't even know.
He did it to wood too. Like no bullshit fucking.
This is just some kid.
It's unreal.
It's a dude. You've seen it before, Kieran Riley.
Yeah.
Perfect.
What?
Dude, it's
like,
I haven't seen the full video yet, but I saw a cell phone clip of him eating shit on it. But it literally, he rolled away like it was like fucking nothing.
It's like.
But I guess he been four separate attempts or something like that, and he literally was destroying his bike. Like his bike would just like one go, done.
I mean, it must be a tough kid too, because
he's a little fucking brick.
Like, it's like I say, he's built like people are built for situations like that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
he looks like he's built to do a triple flare.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
And after all these years and all the like ridiculous scenarios that I've been witness to, it's like there's no end. It's like it always. I'm never like, oh, it's done. Like everything's like been done.
Yeah.
There's been moments where I'm like, oh, whatever. I've seen it all.
Yeah.
And then that happens.
Yeah. When you
Anytime-
did you say that when you saw Kelly Branker
Drink a beer.
drink a beer while riding trails?
I was like, this is it. That's the Piedmont moment. Like,
But it almost brought that up earlier, and I was like, where can I fucking bring this in?
well, that's another cool thing about BMX. It's like you got one dude who's like doing a triple flare,
Yeah.
and another dude that's drinking a beer through a 6-pack instead of trails. What's radder? What's
Yeah.
more difficult?
Yeah.
Like what's made a bigger impression? And there's no rules.
Yeah.
It's like, and you can pick and choose anything that you think is important, and that's like what it is. That's what BMX is, and that's like why I think it's one of the reasons it's been so important to me. It's like
Lifers.
fucking lifers.
Yeah.
There's so many. It's so cool to be up on the East Coast, and like I went to the Posh and Caddy jams this year, and there's dudes that I've known since I was a teenager still riding that have never been sponsored, never been in a magazine. Maybe
Yeah.
they have, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like never been like huge names as far as like, celebrity style BMX goes. Known my whole life. I'm just like, it's like, dude, when did we meet? And I'm like, dude, that was 30 years ago.
Wow.
And they're just like, dudes,
Still
just
out
getting
there.
it. And it's
Yeah.
and like all these little moments add up for like, maybe some dudes don't ride but a couple times a year or a couple times a month, but like there's dudes that like they spent their whole life riding.
There was a little video series. When I say series, it may have only been one, but that dude was called Lifer on the guy Santana that's in Austin.
Oh yeah, I saw him on this trip.
And he put, I mean, it's been 6 years since I've seen this video, but it just had such an impact on me because it was like he's been in videos and stuff like that, but he's not a pro in any sense, and he was able to summarize like why he loves it so well that I was like, this is a good fucking series.
He's
like,
an artist.
Just pick a dude, and as long as they're a good orator and they can explain the way they feel and can and put it in perspective, and like that would be an amazing video series. But you need the right people, obviously.
There's and like hosting so many different scenarios, whether it be like video or event stuff. There's a pretty big gap between some riders that are really interesting personalities and great riders, and people that have a good ability to communicate what they're feeling.
Yeah.
Like, and even people that can hold a conversation, you put a microphone in front of them, they're like, oh, bike.
Yeah. Or they just hit it, or they just hit the microphone like 12 times.
I don't want you guys to, I want to keep you on your toes. Tear the fucking walls down.
Nothing fell down, so I forgot whatever the other topic was.
I don't remember.
You don't remember what I don't remember. So
anything goes.
But unless we have something else, the only thing that I really want to get across is that if you're watching this and you want to buy some coffee, think about drop in, think about supporting Crandall, buy some paintings off the man. If you got an extra helmet or you got some bikes or something that he can use, feel free to throw some love.
If you're ever in the Richmond, Virginia area, go check out everything they're doing. It's like all inclusive, very important. You get to see kids. Anybody's welcome, I'm sure.
Well,
support this man is what I'm trying to say.
BMX has supported me the whole time.
Yeah.
So
well,
I thank you dudes infinitely, and everyone out there in the world. Like, it's been my life's great, what do you call that thing? I don't know. It's been the best thing that's ever happened to me is BMX. I've had such a good experience as a BMXer that like I can't even express it in a way that makes sense. But like, I mean, maybe my deeds will help me show like my gratitude towards BMX. Like
I think it shows your love for BMX. So
like all I have to say is thanks to everybody, and like I hope we get a session sometime, and like hopefully I don't hang up too hard on the case that jumped too bad in front of. But this has been an awesome conversation, and I appreciate you guys. And like I said, endless thanks to everybody in BMX for supporting what I've been a part of over the years, and like my friends and family that have, without them that I wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff, and the friends I've made along the way. This is rad. Let's keep it going.
Oh yeah. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Steve Crandall.
Yeah.
Did that.
Check this out.
Oh.
15.
Hell yeah.